Chapter 32-27. Hee, it's the auction. Xiaohua laughed. But Mo Jianli shook his head and said, Senior, if you said that you got the news from somewhere else, I would believe you. But the auction is full of good and bad people, especially those who come to help with the news. There are many groundless rumors and are not reliable. Especially the secret of the destruction of the 3 rivers. There are many rumors. Xiaohua nodded. If that's the case, the news that I heard without spending much primeval stones shouldn't be true? Yes, for this kind of thing, Senior should just listen to it. Please don't say too much, Mo Jianli said embarrassedly. I think Senior knows what to do. Junior doesn't dare to talk about it. I understand. Xiaohua smiled. What about the second thing? The second thing is Junior's little thought. Mo Jianli stretched out his hand and took out an inch-long flying sword from his sleeve. He respectfully handed it over to Xiaohua and said, Senior, this is Junior's sound-transmitting eye. Please accept it. Junior will definitely report the matter of Longevity Town to the sect. Senior helped Junior fight against the Water Tribe. Junior will think of giving Senior any rewards in the future. Of course, Senior Xiao is my teacher. Junior doesn't dare to talk about making friends. I only hope that if Senior passes by Xi again, Junior will come and pay Senior a visit. Hee, this old man understands. Xiaohua had a very good impression of Mo Jianli and immediately kept the small sword. If this old man has any problems in the future, I will definitely trouble you. Mo Jianli saw that Xiaohua was so straightforward and was very happy. He bowed and said, Thank you, Senior. What about the third thing? Xiaohua waved his hand and asked. The third thing. Mo Jianli looked at Zhu Junfeng and said, Junfeng, you say it. Yes, Mr. Mo. Zhu Junfeng agreed, then respectfully said to Xiaohua, Senior Xiao, Longevity Town has suffered a great calamity today. Tomorrow, the prefectural governor will definitely send someone to investigate. This matter will also have to be reported to the king of Xi Nation. In this Junior's opinion, Senior has rendered meritorious service to Longevity Town, and similarly to the Xi Nation. Why don't Senior wait for a few days? It won't be too late for you to leave after meeting the prefectural governor's envoy. Someone from the government? Xiaohua glanced at Xiao Jian and asked curiously, Previously, I didn't see any officials in Longevity Town. During the Great Calamity, they didn't appear either. Why is it so grand after the Great Calamity? This kind of official. It's better not to meet him. Zhu Junfeng was obviously very embarrassed. He coughed a few times and said, Senior, you may have misunderstood. Longevity Town was a small town to begin with. The county governor in charge of Longevity Town would not send too many subordinates over. Some of his own people like Li Zheng could manage the town. And this county governor is a disciple of my Chongyin sect. Therefore, there are many matters in Longevity Town that this junior can make decisions for. Actually, wasn't the incident of the cloak gang's harassment at the Jiangqiao Temple previously caused by the government? It's just that you don't know about it. Xiaohua understood the moment he heard and said somewhat embarrassedly, Turns out that this old man made a mistake. Sorry. It's all right. Zhu Junfeng smiled apologetically. I've already committed too many sins for not being able to eliminate this great calamity. Perhaps the county governor's envoy is here to punish me. At this point, Mo Jianli raised his head sadly and looked into the distance. He smiled bitterly and said, Although the hundreds of thousands of people in Longevity Town managed to escape, but the Water Clan destroyed all the rice planted along the river. This year, Longevity Town will definitely not have a harvest. The county governor's envoy may punish Junfeng, but the most important thing is to provide disaster relief. If he doesn't do well, it's normal for the villagers to leave their homes. That's strange. Xiaohua was very familiar with mulberry fields. After hearing this, he asked, The villagers in other places usually grow rice. Could it be that it's farmland or terrace fields in the mountains? How could the villagers of Chongqing Town grow rice, which they rely on for a living, by the riverside? The river overflows easily. Once it's flood season, wouldn't that mean a year's worth of hard work would be wasted? Hearing Xiaohua's words, not only was Zhu Junfeng stunned, even Mo Jianli was stunned. They didn't expect Xiaohua to know about this. Unfortunately, they only knew about disaster relief. As for farming, How would they know about it? Senior Xiao Jian opened his mouth. I've been in Longevity Town for many years, right next to the Liao River. I know a little about this. Huh? Mo Jianli almost vomited blood. Looking at the two Taoist cultivators, he really wanted to scream in his heart. These people, are they still cultivators? What are they doing every day? They even know about such small things? Tell me about it. Xiao Hua smiled. Xiao Jian pointed at the Liao River in the distance and said, Senior, you should know that the Liao River rises twice a year and each time, it covers the entire Longevity Town by 2 miles. After the river water falls, the mud and other things in the water will remain on the shore, and even the barren land will become fertile soil. The rice in Longevity Town also ripens twice a year. When the river falls, it's planted. When the river rises, it's harvested. However, the Water Clan attacked yesterday. The tide rose 30 days earlier than usual, so the rice on the shore hasn't been harvested yet. Haha, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, Every place has its own people. I'm not from Longevity Town, so I really don't know about it. Well, I know a lot about it too, Zhu Junfeng said embarrassedly. In that case, the disaster that fellow immortal Zhu is worried about won't be too serious. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Although there's no harvest this season, the villagers all have some food in their homes. Now that the flood is over, you can plant more rice on the shore. When the second season of rice ripens, Longevity Town will have no more hunger. Of course, the town will be a little tense during this period. When the county governor's messenger comes, you just need to get food from other places or buy it. I'm sorry, Mo Jianli said in a low voice. We only know about cultivation. We really don't know about these things. Now that I think about it, I've taken it for granted. It's best to worry about the people. It's normal to take it for granted. Xiao Hua smiled and said, It's better than taking a position without doing anything. However, since fellow immortal Zhu is so worried, why don't I help you? Xiao Hua reached out his hand and said, Fellow immortal Zhu, do you have a storage bag or storage ring? Haha, there's no need to trouble Senior. Zhu Juanfeng's face was slightly red. Longevity Academy still has some money. When I return, I'll immediately send some students to the neighboring town to buy food. Storage bag? Storage ring? Mo Jianli was confused again. After a while, he reached out his hand and took out a small bag from his sleeve. He asked, Senior, are you talking about a small universal bag? Small universal bag? That's right. That's it. Xiao Hua almost wanted to slap his own face. He had already thought about it, and didn't want to talk about things that he didn't know. Now that he blurted out something about a storage bag and a storage ring, it made people feel strange again. Senior, what do you mean? Mo Jianli handed the small universal bag to Xiao Hua, and was even more confused. Haha, Xiao Hua chuckled and didn't dare to ask anymore. He released his spiritual will. Luckily, this small universal bag was the same as a storage bag. He could open it with his spiritual will. Then he pretended to take out a storage bag from his chest and waved his hand. He returned the small universal bag to Mo Jianli and said, I've been in Longevity Town for a few days. I'm fated with the people of Longevity Town. This little bit of food is my farewell gift to the people of Longevity Town. Very good. Mo Jianli was overjoyed. He reached out to take it and carefully put it away. He said respectfully, Senior is indeed worthy of being a Confucian cultivator. You care about the world and the people. Not only did you step forward in times of danger, but you also worked for the people without any fame or benefits. Although this food can't solve the problem in front of us, Senior's breadth of mind is really admirable. Xiao Hua saw that Mo Jianli didn't check the amount of food in the small universal bag. He knew that Mo Jianli was worried about his reputation. After all, which cultivator would carry a large amount of food in their storage bag that they didn't need? Therefore, he didn't point it out. He looked at Lu Yi and Yuanya, who had already returned. He cupped his hands and said, Fellow immortal Mo, fellow immortal Zhu, I'll see you off for 1,000 miles. In the end, we have to part. I'll leave now. You all still have many trivial matters to attend to in Longevity Town. You and I will bid farewell here. If we meet again, we'll meet again. Junior respectfully sees Senior Xiao off. Mo Jianli and Zhu Junfeng said as they saw that they couldn't keep Xiaohua. Mo Jianli and Zhu Junfeng didn't come here alone. Behind them, there were several disciples of the academy on horseback. When Lu Yi was chased by the Cloak Gang's disciples, it was these academy disciples who attacked and killed the Cloak Gang's disciples. Now that Zhu Junfeng saw that Xiaohua wanted to take a carriage, he naturally gave him a few horses. Then he waved goodbye. Xiaohua floated onto the carriage. Lu Yi drove the carriage while Xiao Jian and Yuanya rode the horses. Mo Jianli and Zhu Junfeng only turned around and returned to Longevity Town after the four of them had gone far away. The two of them didn't manage to keep Xiaohua. Although it was within their expectations, they still felt depressed. They thought that although Longevity Town was in a mess, the disaster had already passed. As long as the people slowly calmed down, they would be able to calm down. Therefore, they didn't fly on their swords. Instead, they walked on the main road with big strides. The remaining disciples also followed behind them with their horses. Seeing that the evening mist had already risen, Zhu Juanfeng's face was illuminated by a layer of orange. He looked at the floating clouds in the sky and sighed. Today's scene is no different from yesterday. We only saw the sun rise and the moon set, and the stars moved. However, how can the things that happened today be described with a few words? How can anyone think of today's disaster at this moment yesterday? Mo Jianli nodded slowly. Junfeng is right. What we see now is ordinary. It is the future that the people who died today hoped for. What you feel now is the past that we can't go back to in the future. Zhu Junfeng raised his eyebrows, as if he had understood something. He almost turned his head to look at the figures of Xiaohua and the others who had already disappeared. He said, perhaps only someone like Senior Xiao, who turns around and leaves, leaving behind the same worries, can truly understand. Chapter 32-28. Troubles are created by people. No one can avoid them. Mo Jianli shook his head slightly. Senior Zhao's cultivation is powerful, but he has his troubles too. He has his past that he has never run away from. His cultivation is his, Xiao Jian's cultivation is Xiao Jian's. Our cultivation can only be ours. Ha ha ha, Mr. Mo. Zhu Junfeng laughed and cupped his hands. I've learned. Everyone's cultivation path is different in this world. The Buddhist sect has its Buddhist sect, the Confucian sect has its Confucian sect, and his Taoist sect has its Taoist sect. The Buddhist sect talks about delivering all living beings from torment. The Confucian sect talks about transcending the mortal world. We pursue righteousness, self-cultivation, family governance, and world peace. What about Senior Zhao's Taoist sect? It seems to be to clear one's heart, condense one's nature, and merge with the Tao. Mo Jianli didn't quite understand and whispered. Perhaps, Zhu Junfeng nodded. They don't care about the common people, but I can't. They can all leave freely, but this Zhu cannot just wash my hands of this matter. Just come, let this Zhu see what kind of great power the Buddhist sect has, able to chase away my Longevity Academy from Longevity Town. Junfeng and Mo Jianli knew what Zhu Junfeng was thinking. He shook his head and said, we're just doing our best to help the world. This is cultivation and saving people. If it's purely a battle between the immortals and Buddhas, it's not good. Although it's hard to cross all obstacles, it's hard to find gold after blowing sand. Although the Buddhist sect's appearance is bewitching, only we Confucian sect can help the common people. Junfeng, you're the last true gold. There's no need to complain. Haha, Mr. Mo is right. Zhu Junfeng seemed to understand. He smiled and said, I've been thinking too much. It's still early to think about the future. I'm sure the sect knows about what happened in Chongqing Town, and will have a solution. I'm just thinking about how to make the people in Chongqing Town feel at ease. Indeed, Mo Jianli nodded and said, now that Chongqing Town is short of food, you'd better send the academy disciples to buy food elsewhere to calm the people. The county governor's emissary will probably arrive in 2 days. They'll definitely be escorting food. Zhu Junfeng explained, the king of the kingdom of Xi is wise. He was able to consider such matters. The county governor and the others will not be negligent. At this point, Zhu Junfeng said curiously, that Senior Xiaohua Xiao is also very interesting. He doesn't seem like a Taoist expert at all. He actually knows so much about farming, and he's even more of a Confucian cultivator than me. This junior is truly surprised. Indeed, Mo Jianli said thoughtfully. This senior must be a descendant of the great Confucian scholar, and has cultivated in the mortal world. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances, he decided to cultivate instead. Oh, you can take the food in this small cosmos sack. I don't think there's much, but it's all senior's goodwill. As he spoke, Mo Jianli took out a small universal bag and handed it to Zhu Junfeng. Zhu Junfeng took it and said, "No matter how much it is, it's a timely rain that can save some people. It's 10,000 times better than the flashy Buddhist sect." Ah. Just now, in front of Xiao Huaxiao, the two Confucian cultivators were naturally too embarrassed to check the contents of the small universal bag. Now that Zhu Junfeng scanned it with his divine sense, they almost cried out in surprise. "What's wrong?" Mo Jianli was shocked and hurriedly looked at Zhu Junfeng. "Mr. Mo, you can take a look." Zhu Junfeng's expression was indescribable as he handed the small universal bag back to Mo Jianli. Looking at Zhu Junfeng's expression, Mo Jianli realized that he had been careless. When he looked at it with his divine sense, he was shocked and couldn't help but sigh. Goodness! This is what it means to have a Buddha in every home. This is what it means to have a heart for the people. Although today I saw with my own eyes that Senior Ci Hang of the Buddhist sect almost became a bodhisattva, the compassion in Senior Zhao's heart is no less than Senior Ci Hang's. The food in his bag is basically enough to save 10 longevity towns. Where did Senior Xiao get so much food? Zhu Junfeng was a little confused. I heard that Xiao Jian of the Jiangqiao Temple can barely make ends meet every day. And this food seems to be different from what the longevity towns use daily. You can only ask Senior Xiao face to face. Mo Jianli smiled and patted Zhu Junfeng's shoulder. With this food, the longevity towns will be in chaos even if they want to. Your last worry is also gone. That's right, I will let them see if this food is edible. This disciple will distribute the food. Zhu Junfeng made a decision. Of course, this name should belong to the Jiangqiao Temple. Jiangqiao Temple? The Jiangqiao Temple has already been taken over by the Shaojin Temple, right? Mo Jianli shook his head. Using the name of the Jiangqiao Temple, won't the Buddhist sect benefit from it? Then it's not suitable to use the name of the Taoist sect directly, right? Zhu Junfeng hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, "Then use the name of Spiritual Master Xiao." Before today, this name was also very famous. Xiaohua's space originally had rice and millet seeds, but in these 100 years, not only did Xiaohua not worry about it, even the green-robed Xiaohua did not care about the rice and millet seeds. On the other hand, that white, fat, and cute little fruit was very competent. Whether it was rice or millet seeds, they were all planted in time and harvested in time. On the vast plains in the space, there were a lot of food piled up. 100 years of harvest. Xiaohua was stunned when he saw it. But he did not expect that these seemingly useless food would now start the first flame of Spiritual Master Zhao's miracle on the hidden immortal continent. At this time, Xiaohua was naturally sitting comfortably in the carriage and chatting with Lu Yi. Lu Yi was very clever. Although he was young, his fate was full of misfortune. His mother died early, leaving only Lu Yi and his father to rely on each other. His father's character was not good. He was addicted to drinking and gambling. Especially because of the departure of his beloved wife, he blamed this crime on Lu Yi. Not to mention the love that a child wanted, he didn't even take care of him. Lu Yi had suffered a lot since he was young. It was normal for him to be hungry and not have a meal. Those beatings and insults were also common. It was more than what he ate. And when he was a little older, everywhere he went, he was kicked to the street by his father and begged from house to house. In the beginning, Lu Yi was too young and didn't know how to beg. He would often return empty-handed. At that time, Lu Yi's father would kick and punch him, teaching him a harsh lesson. Lu Yi would starve and cry at night. After a long time, the smart Lu Yi gradually learned how to beg, so that he would not be hungry. He even used the leftovers to feed his father. Just like that, Lu Yi followed his father through city after city, town after town, and finally arrived at Longevity Town. At this time, Lu Yi's father's body had been hollowed out by the wine. Not only could he no longer punch or kick Lu Yi, he was also paralyzed on the straw on the ground, unable to move. Thus, Lu Yi stayed in the longevity town and waited on his father until he passed away. Lu Yi did not have the money to prepare for his father's funeral, but he was also unwilling to let his only relative be wrapped in a straw mat and hurriedly abandoned in the wilderness. After thinking about it, he finally made a decision, which was to enter the longevity town's cloak gang. In the entire longevity town, this was the only place that could accept Lu Yi and provide him with enough money. Shaojin Temple and Longevity Academy could not accept. Do you know? Immortal Master. It was already late at night, the sky was dotted with stars, there were no people or carriages on the main road. Only the sound of a few horses' hooves was particularly loud in the silence. Lu Yi's eyes were even brighter than the stars in the sky. His voice also spread further and further in the night sky. When father beat this little one hated him to death. I always felt that I would be beaten to death by him. I always hoped that he would die sooner. But when he could not move, seeing his pitiful appearance, this little one could not bear it. After all, he was this little one's only relative, and also this little one's biological father. If this little one did not care, he would definitely starve to death in a day. This little one could not ignore it. However, this little one did not like him at all, wanting to return everything he had given this little one back to him. However, when this little one threw the leftovers in his face after he spoke ill of me, this little one discovered for the first time that not only was there no remorse or hatred in his eyes, there was instead a kind of gratification, a kind of peace. This little one seemed to have suddenly understood something. Father, although his character was not good, he still loved this little one. He knew that he would not live for long, but he was also worried about this little one's future, so he began to teach this little one the ways of life from a young age. But his methods were really cruel. So from then on, this little one began to pay attention to father's eyes, as well as the eyes of others. From these people's eyes, this little one discovered a lot of things. In particular, before father passed away, this little one saw that kind of love, that kind of yearning, that kind of reluctance in father's eyes. Although Lu Yi's voice was faint, and his tone was flat, the sound of his rapid breathing revealed the agitation in his heart. After father left, this little one mingled in the cloak gang again, and from the eyes of the gang members, this little one saw the disgust and fierceness that had never been seen in father's eyes before. This little one finally understood that although father had been harsh to this little one since young, he also had no choice. When he hit this little one, he hurt this little one in his heart. That kind of complicated look in his eyes will always be unforgettable to this little one. After father left, there was no more life in this world in this little one's eyes. Although this little one no longer needed to be beaten, this little one really missed those days of being beaten. Although this little one's body hurt, this little one's heart had someone to rely on. As long as I could see father's shadow and hear father's voice, this little one's heart would be at ease. Lu Yi continued. It's a pity that those days have become this little one's eternal memories, and this little one can no longer return to the past. Until one day, this little one saw Xiaoyan on the banks of Liao River. Seeing the panic and helplessness in Xiaoyan's eyes, this little one immediately thought of this little one's childhood. At that time, although this little one felt that life was worse than death, this little one did not panic. No matter how helpless this little one was, this little one still had someone to rely on. Xiaoyan's appearance was so pitiful. Her clothes did not cover her body, and her body was covered with dirty seaweed and many fleas. This little one knew that if this little one did not take care of her, she would definitely freeze to death in the cold winter night. So this little one brought her back. Although this little one was not a good person, this little one could at least support her and make her a good person. The Cultivator's Eternal Legend. Chapter 32-29. When I first met Master Immortal, I thought that Master Immortal was just an ordinary youth. From top to bottom, Master Immortal didn't have any otherworldly appearance. Taoist Xiao and the old monk Ming, you were both older than you. However, although you saw me stealing money, you didn't catch me. Although I was a little disrespectful to Master Immortal, I knew that Master Immortal didn't care, because I didn't see any disdain or malice in your eyes. There was only a kind of peace and tranquility. It was also this kind of peace that made me feel safe for the first time after my father passed away. Even when you saved me, I only saw a kind of disdain in Master Immortal's eyes. This kind of disdain made me feel ashamed of my inferiority. I knew that Master Immortal was definitely not an ordinary person. When I heard about the miracle of the river and tide temple, I immediately had a feeling that I had to find Master Immortal. Only Master Immortal could save Xiaoyan. Only Master Immortal could get me out of the quagmire of the cloak gang. Rumble. At this point, a rumbling sound came from Lu Yi's stomach. It had been several hours since the afternoon. Xiaohua naturally didn't feel anything, but Lu Yi and the others hadn't eaten or drunk anything. Naturally, they were already hungry. A small black shadow flew out from Yuanya's horse and landed on the carriage beside Lu Yi. Xiaohua looked at it. It was Yuanya's usual meat bun. Lu Yi touched it, opened it, and took a big bite. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother Ya, for the bun." And Yuanya replied and didn't say anything else. His voice was actually trembling. Xiaohua could see clearly that Yuanya was biting his lips tightly. Although Lu Yi's life was bitter, he had followed his father since he was young. Yuanya did not know who his father and mother were. He only followed the wild animals in the forest as he grew up. His life was even more bitter than Lu Yi's. Xiaohua looked at Lu Yi's thin back. In the night, it seemed a little thin. Compared to Yuanya's muscular waist and arms, it was a far cry. However, Lu Yi's quick-wittedness and calmness were something that Yuanya could not compare to. In particular, Xiaohua had casually killed the two villains from the cloak gang in the small courtyard of the Longevity Town. Xiaohua had only instructed Lu Yi to keep it a secret, but Lu Yi seemed to have completely forgotten about it. Even when Lu Yi mentioned it to Xiaohua a few times, he only skimmed over it, not revealing the slightest bit of information. This made Xiaohua very satisfied. As for Xiaoyan's matter, Xiaohua told him not to ask about it, so he didn't ask about it. If it was Xiaohua himself, he probably would have asked the moment he left Longevity Town, right? After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua said, "Lu Yi, your experience is a kind of tempering for you. It's the best life gift your father has given you. It's a pity that you met this old man too late. This old man couldn't meet your father who had such foresight. However, since you met this old man now, this is your fate. Everything that you were afraid of in the past, from today onwards, you don't have to be afraid anymore." Actually, in Xiaohua's opinion, Lu Yi's father might not be as good as Lu Yi said. Even the so-called tempering and the like were all Lu Yi's own ideas. However, was the nature of Su Liuyi's father important right now? Was the original intention of scolding Lu Yi important? Everyone had their own idols. Their father was the first person they worshipped in their life. Whether good or bad, it would have some influence on them. Since Lu Yi didn't become twisted because of his past experience, why couldn't Xiaohua become the hero in Lu Yi's heart? Hearing Xiaohua's words, Lu Yi's body trembled. He resisted an indescribable intuition. Before Xiaohua could speak, he said in a trembling voice, "Yes, Immortal Master, this little one understands. This little one serving Immortal Master is a great opportunity. In the future, I don't have to be afraid of anything in the world." Xiaohua laughed. It was easy to talk to a clever child like Lu Yi. However, he immediately said solemnly, "But, Lu Yi, you have to know that before anyone has a great divine ability, they can't be free and unfettered between heaven and earth. To have a divine ability, you have to pay a price far beyond what you think. This price is far more difficult than what you think now. What food and clothing, what bullying, in front of this price, it's nothing but grass. As for the specifics, even if this old man told you now, you wouldn't know." Immortal Master, without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, Lu Yi turned around and kneeled on the carriage. He kowtowed and said, "This little one earnestly asks Immortal Master to teach me the heaven-piercing technique, so that this little one can laugh proudly in the hidden immortal continent and spread Immortal Master's fame." Ha ha ha, heaven-piercing technique. Xiaohua's laughter seemed very loud in the night. This old man here doesn't have any heaven-piercing technique. Lu Yi leaned on the carriage and let the carriage slowly move forward. He didn't speak. You can get up. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, since this old man wants to accept you as a servant, I naturally have the intention to borrow your strength. Of course, this old man also won't be stingy. Cultivation techniques. I will also choose some for you. As for how well you cultivate and what your future achievements will be, it will depend on your own ability. Many thanks, Immortal Master. Louis forcibly restrained his excitement and said in a low voice, this disciple dares not to cultivate diligently and sully Immortal Master's fame? You can get up. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, it's still too early to accept you as a disciple. Let's talk about it when you have the opportunity in the future. Yes, this little one understands. Lu Yi was already prepared in his heart. Even if he joined the cloak gang, there was still a test. How could it be so easy for an expert like Xiao Hua to accept a disciple? He responded and got up to continue driving the carriage. In addition, Xiao Hua opened his mouth again. He wanted to tell Lu Yi about Xiao Yun's matter. He knew that Lu Yi was a person with deep feelings, and would definitely want to know about Xiao Yun's whereabouts. However, when the words reached his mouth, he stopped. He was a very curious person, and wanted to ask about everything he encountered. He wanted to get to the bottom of everything. Now that he met someone who could calm down his temper, why must he reveal everything? Why not wait and see? If he didn't say anything, when would Lu Yi ask? This was also a kind of test, right? Immortal Master. After waiting for a moment, Lu Yi didn't see Xiao Hua continue to speak. He asked curiously, do you have any instructions? Nothing, just call this old man Xiao Daoist in the future. There's no need to call me Immortal Master. Xiao Hua said with a smile. It won't be too late to call me that when this old man becomes an immortal. See, when Lu Yi heard this, he almost choked. After a moment, he suppressed his heart that was about to jump out of his throat and carefully said, this little one understands, Xiao Daoist. Xiao Hua raised his eyes and looked at Xiao Jian, who was standing in front of Yuanya. He understood that Xiao Jian's story might be even more than Yuanya and Lu Yi's combined. Xiao Hua's feelings didn't only come from these dozen or so days, from what Xiao Jian vaguely said, as well as the appearance of those two Buddhist sect guards. Even more so from when Xiao Jian received the steed from Longevity Academy's disciple, mounted it in an extremely skilled manner. The instant he raised the horsewhip, that surging expression. However, Xiao Jian's shrewdness was really too deep. He knew that Xiao Hua's impression of Yuanya was not bad. Yuanya had arrogantly asked to become his disciple several times. Even though Xiao Hua ignored him, he still vaguely pointed out that Yuanya had a master, and he wouldn't accept Yuanya as his disciple. Yuanya couldn't tell, but how could Xiao Jian not? However, he didn't mention giving Yuanya to Xiao Hua at all. Moreover, it was clear that Xiao Jian needed Xiao Hua's help, but he also wanted to maximize his own benefits. Therefore, Xiao Hua knew what Xiao Jian was thinking, but didn't bring up this topic. He wanted to see just how Xiao Jian was going to open his mouth and bargain with him. Xiao Hua said indifferently. Let's find a secluded and safe place. We'll rest for a bit. Yes, this junior understands. What Xiao Jian was thinking, only he knew. Ever since they left Longevity Town, he didn't say much, only hurrying along. When he heard Xiao Hua's words, he hurriedly replied. Only when he raised his eyes and looked around, apart from the faint moonlight scattering down on the great path and mountain streams, the sounds of insects and wind by his ears, how could he tell where was a quiet place? However, after riding for a while, a slightly flat slope appeared on the side of the road. Xiao Jian hurriedly pointed, calling out, Senior, what do you think about that place? This old man doesn't care, Xiao Hua said with a smile. If you all think it's fine, then it's fine. Xiao Jian turned his horse around and looked at Xiao Hua's young face under the moonlight. Although this young man called himself an old man, he didn't feel anything wrong. Thinking back to his previous actions, he was actually that cold to Xiao Hua just because he suspected that Xiao Hua was sent by someone else. Xiao Hua, he was really blind. Different from Xiao Jian's thoughts, Xiao Hua didn't feel anything when Yuanya or Lu Yi called themselves an old man. After all, they were still young. However, Xiao Jian was already old. Looking at this face that was much older than him, Xiao Hua knew that he was older than him, but calling him an old man was still awkward. This junior understands. Let's rest here tonight. Xiao Jian turned his horse around and swung his horsewhip. The horse rushed out of the uneven road and rushed up the slope. By the time Lu Yi drove the carriage to the gentle slope, Xiao Jian and Yuanya had already dismounted and loosened the reins. They were eating the grass nearby, while they waited respectfully. You all should do what you need to do. Xiao Hua's figure flew up from the carriage and landed on the ground in the distance. He said, this old man has already placed everything in the carriage that can be used in the Tidal River Temple. Yes, when Yuanya heard this, he hurriedly jumped onto the carriage. Sure enough, the originally empty carriage was already filled with things. Yuanya's hands and feet were nimble. He took down the tools from the carriage, then bent down and placed his ear on the ground to listen for a moment. He then took the wooden bucket, iron pot and other things and went to another place. In that direction, Xiao Hua had already used his divine sense to see a stream flowing by. As for Lu Yi, he also obediently ran up the slope and picked up a lot of dry wood under the big tree. Xiao Jian also didn't stay idle. He took the horses from the carriage and sent them to the grassland, allowing them to eat grass. He looked at Xiao Hua, who was sitting cross-legged, and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't walk over. Chapter 32:30. Not long after, Lu Yi started a fire on the slope. Yuanya also washed the iron pot and brought back some water. After taking the food from the carriage, he started to cook over the fire. Oh, it sounded like a wolf's howl from afar. Yuanya looked up and whispered a few words to Lu Yi. Then, he quickly ran towards the sound of the wolf's howl. His figure jumped on the slope at an extremely fast speed. After half an hour, Yuanya came back. There were some bloodstains on his body, and he carried a black thing on his shoulder. Lu Yi saw that it was actually half a wild boar. Then, Yuanya took out a short knife and skillfully cut up the wild boar. He skewered it on a branch and roasted it over the fire. Seeing the wild boar meat sizzling in the firelight and the rich fragrance coming out, Lu Yi's saliva almost flowed out. He was waiting for the boar meat to be ready so that he could eat it. Lu Yi at this moment, Xiao Hua said, "Come here." "Yes, Taoist Xiao." Lu Yi heard and stood up without hesitation. He quickly walked over to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a fasting pill. He handed it to Lu Yi and said, "This is my Taoist fasting pill. After taking it, you won't be hungry or thirsty for 7 days. Are you willing to take it? This is an immortal pill. Taoist Xiao should keep it for yourself." Lu Yi was shocked. He thought of the rumors he heard and hurriedly waved his hand. Xiao Hua said indifferently, "I only want to ask you, are you willing to take it?" "I am willing," Lu Yi said honestly. "I used to be afraid of hunger. I even dreamed of taking this immortal pill." "Eat it." Xiao Hua flicked his finger, and the fasting pill fell into Lu Yi's hand. Lu Yi immediately put it in his mouth and closed his eyes. After a moment he smiled and said, "Thank you, Taoist Xiao. I am not hungry anymore." "Do you want to eat Yuanya's roasted meat?" "Yes." Lu Yi didn't hide it. "I have a secret technique here. It will allow you to use the essence of heaven and earth to temper your meridians and bones. It will become the foundation for you to be free in the future. Are you willing to practice it?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. Lu Yi was shocked. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. Then, he realized that this happiness came too quickly. He hurriedly bowed down and said, "Disciple, you don't have to call yourself my disciple." Xiao Hua hurriedly stopped him. "It's just a simple qi refinement technique. If you succeed in cultivating it, then this old man can accept you as his disciple. Otherwise, you're still you. Even if you can enter the ranks, you can't call this old man master." Yes, Lu Yi's voice was trembling. He could tell that this cultivation method could allow him to enter the ranks. Even if he entered the ranks, he might not be able to call Xiao Hua master. Then with Xiao Hua's cultivation, the importance of this cultivation method was self-evident. After qi refining, the world's grains and meat might not be edible anymore. Xiao Hua smelled the fragrance of meat in the distance and said, "Are you willing?" "This disciple is willing." Hearing Xiao Hua's somewhat shoddy test method, Lu Yi's expression turned respectful. Without the slightest neglect, he hurriedly replied, Okay, as Xiaohua spoke, he waved his hand and threw out several yellow talismans. With a flash of light, a silencing spell was cast. Then Xiaohua said, "Come here. Close your eyes and sit in front of this old man. This old man wants to see how your aptitude is." "Yes, Immortal Master." The excited Lu Yi couldn't help but call Xiaohua Immortal Master. Lu Yi naturally understood that Xiaohua wanted to teach him the cultivation method. This was something he had never dreamed of. Xiaohua smiled faintly and still waved his hand, saying, "This old man hasn't agreed to accept you as a disciple. Don't be so excited." "Yes, Taoist priest, this little one understands." Seeing Xiaohua repeatedly deny accepting him as a disciple, Lu Yi also felt a little strange. Could it be that he was really too shoddy? Actually, it was quite funny. Xiaohua had achieved success in his cultivation, and his cultivation was also profound, but all of his mystical powers had been developed by himself. Xiao Hongyue of Shanghuaming had never given him any pointers, and neither had helplessness of the Imperial Thunder sect. On the contrary, it was Xiang Yang who had taught him a lot. When he was on the Dawn Ring continent, Xiaohua also didn't accept any disciples. Whether it was giving cultivation methods to others or setting up the fortune gate, he just threw out the jade slips and other things and didn't care about them anymore. At this moment, he felt really awkward to be teaching an aura refining technique to a secular person who had never practiced Taoist magic. He felt that it was inappropriate for Lu Yi to be his disciple. After all, he was already a late gold core stage cultivator. How could he accept a secular person who had no foundation in cultivation as his disciple? Moreover, it was his first disciple. However, Lu Yi's luck was very good. First, he was clever. Second, he was kind. Third, some of Xiaohua's merit in the longevity town was related to Lu Yi. If Xiaohua didn't give Lu Yi some benefits, there would be some karma. The most important thing was that Xiaohua now had to find a way to refine the earth crystal Yao milk in his body. It wasn't suitable for him to fly around the hidden immortal continent. He had a lot of time to guide Lu Yi's cultivation. Therefore, Xiaohua had the idea of teaching Taoist cultivation methods to Lu Yi. Seeing Lu Yi sit down cross-legged, Xiaohua stretched out a finger and pointed at the back of Lu Yi's head. Then, a strand of true essence entered Lu Yi's body. Just now on the carriage, Xiaohua had already taken a look at the qi-refining jade slips sent by Zhang Qingxiao. Inside them, there were methods and spells to check the attributes of the body. Oh, after a moment, Xiaohua was slightly surprised and his brows wrinkled. Xiaohua actually couldn't check the attributes of Lu Yi's body. Could it be that something went wrong when I used it for the first time? Xiaohua thought for a moment and slightly closed his eyes. He pondered over the method in his mind, and once again pointed his finger at the back of Lu Yi's head. This method was very simple. For a cultivator like Xiaohua, it wasn't very difficult. However, after a few breaths of time, the doubt on Xiaohua's face became even stronger. Could it be that Lu Yi's physique is heterogeneous and unsuitable for cultivation? Xiaohua's heart turned cold. He immediately understood the root of the problem. Then Xiaohua rubbed his hands and several rays of brilliance entered Lu Yi's body. After Xiaohua withdrew his magic power, ripples began to appear on the surface of Lu Yi's body. These ripples surged out layer by layer. Red, orange, yellow, green, and other colors flowed out like fireworks. After half a cup of tea's time, they converged into Lu Yi's body. During this time, not a single color could last for long on the surface of Lu Yi's body. Alas, it's really like this. Xiaohua sighed. Although he didn't have a magic tool that specialized in screening one's physique, and could truly determine whether Lu Yi could cultivate, this method and spell were no different from magic tools in the hands of a late nascent soul cultivator like him, whose strength was comparable to a late nascent soul cultivator. Since this spell already showed that Lu Yi's physique was heterogeneous and none of the 5 elements were obvious, then he was a pure secular person, and unsuitable to cultivate Taoist spells. Lu Yi naturally didn't know that his fate had been determined. He was still sitting cross-legged. Although his eyes were closed, his face was brimming with excitement. Alas, Xiaohua sighed and said, "Lu Yi, get up." "Yes, Taoist Elder Xiao." Lu Yi replied and hurriedly got up. He stood there respectfully and looked at Xiaohua with eyes full of expectation. Xiaohua actually couldn't bear it and said, "Your physique, This old man has already seen it. It doesn't seem suitable to cultivate my sex cultivation method. Of course, this old man will take another look. Lu Yi's face sank, and an indescribable pain flashed through his eyes. However, he quickly put on a smile and said, Taoist Elder Xiao, it's okay. This little one is just a mortal. It's normal that I don't have the fate to become an immortal. If this little one hadn't met Taoist Elder, I wouldn't have known that there was a path of cultivation, and wouldn't have thought of cultivating. Xiaohua could naturally feel the disappointment in his heart. As the saying goes, the greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Xiaohua could only smile and say, It's all this old man's fault for being reckless. I didn't carefully examine your physique, and just casually read it out for you. How about this? Since you can't cultivate the Taoist sect's divine ability, this old man will help you look at the Confucian sect and Buddhist sect. They don't seem to have high requirements for physique. This little one doesn't dare to ask for too much. In just a moment, Louis regained his calm and said respectfully, This little one only asks to be able to serve Taoist Elder. It doesn't matter if I cultivate or not. All right. Xiaohua raised his hand and the restriction around him disappeared. He said, Go and rest. Louis got up and prepared to walk to the side of the fire to rest. When Xiao Jian and Yuanya heard Xiaohua calling Louis over, their eyes were already looking over there. Their ears also straightened. Unfortunately, other than the first few words, they didn't hear anything else. The two of them naturally knew that this was Xiaohua's technique, and couldn't help but secretly regret it. However, when they were disappointed, Lu Yi's body actually emitted a faint brilliance in the dark night, attracting their attention again. At this time, Louis left Xiaohua's side and returned to the side of the fire. Although he didn't say anything, his face was filled with depression. After all, he was still a teenager. Although he said he didn't care, how could he not have thought about it after pondering for a long time? Brother Lu, without waiting for Louis to sit down, Yuanya handed him a piece of roasted wild boar meat and said in a low voice, Did the immortal master teach you a supreme divine ability? Yuanya was originally this boring. This time it was okay. He actually handed over a piece of meat before speaking. Louis looked at Yuanya unhappily. He bit his lip, waved his hand and said with a forced smile, Brother Ye, Taoist Elder gave me a medicinal pill. I'm not hungry now. You can eat this wild boar meat yourself. Ah, an immortal pill? Yuanya's eyes flashed with fanaticism. He looked at the roasted meat that he was drooling over just a moment ago. Now he seemed to feel that it didn't have the same fragrance as before. Then he asked again, Brother Lu, your luck is really good. The immortal master actually gave you an immortal pill. Also, then, what did the immortal master teach you? Can you tell me? Hearing Yuanya's repeated questions, Louis almost wanted to cry. It wasn't easy to encounter an immortal opportunity, but he actually couldn't cultivate. That kind of disappointment was really unbearable. Chapter 32-31. Little brother. My aptitude is not good enough. I can't cultivate. Louis said word by word, tears almost rolling in his eyes. Yuanya was startled and hurriedly said with a smile, It's okay, it's okay. It's okay if you can't cultivate. It's not bad to be able to accompany Immortal Master. Look at me. I want to accompany Immortal Master, but Immortal Master doesn't want me. At the end, Yuanya muttered to himself, I don't know what my aptitude is like. It seemed that Yuanya's words of comfort to Louis were not the main point. The main point was the last sentence. Louis curled his lips and slightly lifted his finger, saying in a low voice, Whether your aptitude is good or not, little brother doesn't know. Look at this Taoist. Xiao Yuanya looked in the direction of Lu Yi's finger. Xiao Jian, who didn't say anything just now, was already holding a piece of roasted wild boar meat in his hand. He had already run in front of Xiaohua. Master Yuanya was startled. He almost lost his voice and said in a low voice, He knows that immortal Master Xiao doesn't eat the food of mortals. Louis laughed and raised his hand, wiping away the tears that overflowed from his eyes. But Immortal Master is still a human, not an immortal. Although Immortal Master doesn't eat, as a junior, you must have the attitude of a junior. That's right, Xiaohua was still a human after all. Seeing Xiao Jian holding the fragrant wild boar meat and carefully asking him if he was willing to try this delicacy, he could only smile and wave his hand, saying, "You can eat it later. This old man doesn't eat meat anymore." Hee, this junior knows. Xiao Jian looked at the roasted meat in his hand and said with a smile, "Roasted meat is Ye's specialty. This junior couldn't help but want to let senior have a taste. After all, senior greatly increased the face of our Taoist sect yesterday. This junior has nothing to show respect to you. Hee, it's nothing." Xiaohua heard this and didn't point it out. He smiled and said, "You saved this old man. This old man is just giving you a reward." Xiao Jian's face turned slightly red. He immediately thought of his face when he saw Xiaohua and said with a smile, "That day this junior lost his composure. Please forgive me." Xiaohua said with a smile, "What you did was normal. What crime is there? It's fine as long as I don't blame you." Xiao Jian smiled embarrassedly and casually glanced at Lu Yi in the distance. He said, "Senior, you really have the ability to see through people. Brother Lu is a clever person. If he can cultivate my Taoist cultivation technique, he might be of great help to you. His physique isn't suitable for cultivation. I'm afraid I can't teach him the basics of cultivation." Xiaohua didn't hide anything. "Oh, his physique is not suitable for cultivation?" Xiao Jian finally brought up the topic of cultivation. He was secretly delighted, but he still asked curiously, "I remember that when this junior was cultivating as a child, there was no such thing as a suitable physique?" "Oh, that's right." Xiaohua slaps his own forehead and comes to a realization. Right now it's the hidden immortal continent, not the daybreak continent. This world's spiritual energy, perhaps, is different. Are people's aptitudes also different? Before this Xiao left the Dawn Rain continent, the heaven and earth spirit chi seemed to have changed. Many disciples of the cultivation clans had their bloodlines awakened, and the cultivation sect's method of selecting disciples was no longer useful. Perhaps this Xiao's physique inspection technique is also no longer useful? Xiaohua looks at Xiao Jian and says, "Close your eyes and sit down. This old man will take a look." Yes, Xiao Jian's voice is somewhat trembling. He hastily sits down and very skillfully crosses his legs. His two hands form a seal and place in front of his chest. The seal that Xiao Jian formed looks somewhat unfamiliar to Xiaohua, but there is no doubt that this seal is the Dao Sect's seal. In the past, Xiao Jian indeed cultivated Dao Sect's cultivation technique. It's just that because he was unwilling to talk about it, it caused his cultivation to be crippled, right? Xiaohua ponders for a moment. His hands rub again and several rays of light enter Xiao Jian's body. Then, similar rays of light appear on the surface of Xiao Jian's body. Sure enough, Xiaohua inhales a breath. He knows that his guess is correct. Xiao Jian's physique is also a mixture of the 5 elements. It's not a cultivation physique. Since Xiao Jian can cultivate, then Lu Yi can also cultivate. There are only 2 questions left. One is what kind of cultivation technique Xiao Jian cultivates. The second is the hidden immortal continent's chi refinement cultivation technique the same as the Dawn Rain continent's? Senior, when the rays of light on the surface of his body disappear, Xiao Jian opens his mouth and says, "Senior, what did you discover?" "Your physique is also not suitable for cultivation," Xiaohua says indifferently. Xiao Jian is anxious. "Senior, you didn't discover anything else?" "No," Xiaohua shakes his head. Then he asks, "What is your cultivation technique? Can you tell this old man?" "Sorry," Xiao Jian slightly shakes his head. "Junior, cannot tell senior." Xiao Jian's answer is not out of Xiaohua's expectation. He thinks for a moment and asks, "What kind of test did you go through? Did you choose different cultivation techniques according to the results of the test?" "Junior does not need to go through the test," Xiao Jian replies, "but Junior has seen different cultivation techniques. Among them, there is one that is effective for Junior. Junior chose that cultivation technique." "Oh," Xiaohua hears, slightly nods his head and says, "Call Louis over." "Yes. Yes." Xiao Jian sees Xiaohua avoiding the topic and is somewhat helpless. He agrees and turns around to leave. Xiaohua suddenly speaks. Xiao Jian is overjoyed and hurriedly turns his head. "Senior, what instructions do you have?" These are a few sweet dates. They are very good to eat. You and Yuanya can have one each. Xiaohua says, and with a wave of his hand, 2 fist-sized red dates appear in his hand. He passes them to Xiaojian. Xiaojian is really disappointed, but he still respectfully accepts and thanks Xiaohua. Xiaohua quickly returns to the side of the fire. Lu Yi was originally a bit sleepy, but when he hears Xiaohua's call, he immediately becomes spirited again. He jogs in front of Xiaohua and says, "Daoist, what is the matter?" I was a bit impatient." Seeing that Lu Yi's eyes are somewhat unable to open, Xiaohua says with a smile, "You go and rest. We will talk about it tomorrow morning." Yes, Lu Yi is very clever. After hearing Xiaohua's order, he immediately takes out some bedding from the carriage. After giving it to Xiaojian and Yuanya, he also lies down with his clothes on. In a moment he enters a dream. In the dream, he rides a flying sword and gallops between heaven and earth. A trace of a smile also hangs on the corner of his mouth. The fire is extinguished, the night is deep. Even the faint wolf howls from a moment ago can no longer be heard. Only the snoring sound of Xiaojian, and the other 2 echoes in the darkness. This day is really too long. The experience of this day is enough for them to use a lifetime to recollect. They are indeed too tired. In the night, 2 eyes that are as bright as the stars in the sky are looking at the distance with great spirit. Xiaohua does not seem to be sleepy. Instead, he mutters in a low voice, "It's a bit strange. Could it be that the cultivation method of Hidden Immortal Continent's Daoist sect is really different from Dawn Rain Continent? But if it is not a 5 elements physique, how can one sense the spiritual energy between heaven and earth? How can one draw spiritual energy into the body? Perhaps the cultivation method of Hidden Immortal Continent is unique, and can let ordinary people sense the spiritual energy between heaven and earth? This is also not very possible. The Daoist sect of the 3 continents has already declined, and the Daoist sect of Dawn Rain Continent is at its peak. Why can't the Daoist sect of Dawn Rain Continent find a way to do it? Also, the spiritual energy of Hidden Immortal Continent is exactly the same as Dawn Rain Continent. At least the Xiao did not discover any difference. All cultivation methods and secret techniques can be used here. Even the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here is denser than Dawn Rain Continent. I can only look for some Daoist qi refining cultivation methods first. Let's see what the so-called foundation establishment, consecration, fusion, heart-stirring, spirit stillness, and other realms are all about. Xiaohua's gaze looks at Xiaojian's figure not far away, and says with a smile, "Since you don't let this Xiao see, then this Xiao can't see? How can there not be Daoist sect cultivation methods in a place where there are vitality stones transactions? Now you want to provoke this Xiao's curiosity again and again. Want this Xiao to take the initiative to ask about your story, but why should this Xiao enter the trap? Since you don't want to say, this Xiao will naturally not mention. This Xiao will also not take the initiative to check your meridians in Dantian. Your enemy is an entire country. No matter how powerful this Xiao is, it is impossible for this Xiao to be the opponent of an entire country right now. When Lu Yi wakes up, the sky is already bright. He wipes away the saliva at the corner of his mouth with a very red face, then looks regretfully at Xiaohua, who is already using the Big Dipper God fist in the distance, secretly hating himself for waking up too late. About 10 zhang to Lu Yi's left, Yuanya has already assumed a posture, and is practicing with Xiaohua. It looks like he also has the appearance of a master. Lu Yi habitually touches his stomach. Sure enough, it is as Xiaohua said, the intense hunger that he usually feels when he wakes up in the morning did not attack him today. He still feels full like yesterday. Looking around, it seems that other than flying in the sky and burrowing into the ground in his dream last night, everything is like a dream. Lu Yi, Xiaohua calls from afar. Follow this old man's movements, see if you can learn it. Yes, this little one understands. Lu Yi is overjoyed. He hurriedly stares at Xiaohua's movements. His hands and arms dance at the same time. After half a meal, Xiaohua asks, Lu Yi, do you have any special feeling? Special feeling? Lu Yi is slightly dazed. He does not know what Xiaohua is talking about. Oh, that means there is no special feeling. Xiaohua looks at Lu Yi's blank expression. He knows that he did not really practice the Big Dipper God fist. He says again, You stop, this old man has something to say to you. Yes, Lu Yi hurriedly stops his movements. He stands there very respectfully. But Yuanya, who is about 10 zhang, looks at Xiaohua. He opens his mouth to say something, but when he sees a flash of brilliance around Xiaohua and Lu Yi, he can only see Xiaohua's mouth moving. He can no longer hear Xiaohua's voice. Yuanya closes his mouth again. Inside the silent restriction, Xiaohua frankly and sincerely says to Lu Yi, "This old man has never accepted a disciple before. You are the first one. This old man has never had the experience of teaching other people a cultivation technique from the beginning. Therefore, yesterday's test seems to have some problems." Chapter 32-32. Seeing the joy in Lu Yi's eyes, Xiaohua hurriedly waves his hand and says, "Of course, this doesn't mean that you will definitely be able to cultivate. Don't be happy too early. I thought about it last night. Now I have several different cultivation methods. If you are willing, I can teach you one by one. You can see for yourself which one is useful." Immortal Master. Lu Yi's gratitude in his heart is incomparable. He really couldn't imagine that he would be able to obtain several different cultivation methods. He can't help but call out "Immortal Master," and kneels on the ground. He is so excited that tears flow down, as if he wants to turn last night's depression into sobs. "You don't have to be like this," Xiaohua says with a smile. "I am only giving you some insignificant things. Whether you can step on this road in the future will depend on yourself. In particular, I am also doing an experiment on your body to see if my idea is correct." Taoist Xiao. Lu Yi calms down and kneels on the ground and says, "I know that I am not worthy to be Taoist Xiao's disciple. However, I have regarded Taoist Xiao as my senior since yesterday, the person closest to me in this world. Not to mention doing an experiment for Taoist Xiao. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, so what? Get up." Xiaohua looks at this clever child and says with a smile, "Just like yesterday, I will recite the cultivation method to you." "Yes, Taoist Xiao." Lu Yi suppresses the excitement in his heart and simply doesn't get up. He directly uses his hands to support himself and sits down cross-legged. Then Xiaohua recites an earth attribute cultivation method to Lu Yi's ear 3 times. As expected by Xiaohua, Lu Yi is indeed smart. Xiaohua only needs to recite it once and Lu Yi already remembers it clearly. However, although this cultivation method is simple and crude, it is after all the real cultivation method of the Taoist sect. Lu Yi doesn't understand the meaning of it. Although he repeats it several times and remembers it without missing a word, he doesn't know when he will be able to draw in qi into his body. "Lu Yi, you must remember this. This cultivation method cannot be easily revealed. You can only cultivate it by yourself," Xiaohua says again. "Now you must comprehend it yourself. First, you must be able to sense the qi of heaven and earth. When you reach this step, only then will you know if you can cultivate it or not. If there is anything you don't understand, just ask me." "Yes, I understand." Lu Yi was completely baffled by what he heard, but he didn't dare to say anything. His mind was only filled with the first layer of qi refining cultivation technique, and he silently recited it over and over again for fear of forgetting even half a word. Looking at Lu Yi's serious expression, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of himself back then. He thought to himself, this qi refinement technique was originally recorded in the language of Dawn Rain Continent. I wonder if it's suitable for me to use the language of Hidden Immortal Continent to speak about it. However, this Xiao has already used this cultivation method once last night, so it should be feasible. As for the rest, we'll talk about it at the auction. Lu Yi wanted to comprehend an aura refining technique, so the task of driving the carriage naturally fell on Yuanya's shoulders. Although the carriage wasn't small, it wasn't big either. It was filled with all sorts of things, so Xiaohua naturally didn't want to sit in it. Thus, he rode on Yuanya's horse and walked in front of the carriage. After leaving Longevity Town, the main road gradually became uneven. Although it was still wide, there were fewer people walking on it. There were more people riding horses than carriages. After a few days, there were almost no pedestrians. Instead, there were only some carriages and horses. Hidden Immortal Continent's Shi Country wasn't as beautiful as Dawn Rain Continent's Shi Country. Beside the main road were low hills. On top of the hills were some wild trees that were about 1 zhang tall. They were sparse and couldn't form a forest. Under the wild trees, the grass was also yellowed. There wasn't any verdant green. Occasionally, there was a dense mountain forest between a few hills. If one looked carefully, they weren't lush at all. The sun was hanging in the sky, mercilessly shining on the ground. The dust brought up by the galloping horses was blown up by the wind. When it hit one's face, they would feel a burst of annoyance. Yuanya narrowed his eyes. The reins in his hand were very stable as he controlled the carriage. He let the dust fall on his face and his open chest. This dust was raised by Xiaojian's horse. It was just 2 zhang away from Yuanya's right hand. Xiaojian seemed to be in a sorry state. His forehead was already covered in sweat. His back was also soaked with sweat. A layer of white marks appeared on his Daoist robe. Yuanya looked at Xiaohua on the horse in front of Xiaojian. At this time, Xiaohua wasn't riding a horse like Xiaojian. He was holding the reins and using the whip to urge the horse. Instead, he was simply sitting cross-legged. He only put the reins on the horse's neck and let the horse move on its own. However, this kind of strange posture made Yuanya feel incomparably harmonious. It was as if Xiaohua was a part of the horse and couldn't be separated. Therefore, not only did Xiaohua's horse run easily, it also ran the fastest. Yuanya looked. He couldn't help but feel as if he was looking at a high mountain. For someone like Yuanya who had grown up in the jungle, the divine abilities that Xiaohua had displayed before were indeed shocking. However, it wasn't as profound as the unity of man and nature that Xiaohua displayed while riding a horse. He couldn't help but sigh. He turned his head and looked at Lu Yi, who was comprehending the cultivation technique behind him. A kind of jealousy that he had never felt before spontaneously arose. In his heart, strength was supreme, whether it was in the jungle or in the arena. And Xiaohua was the most direct method to raise his strength to a level that he had always dreamed of. That's right. In Yuanya's heart, Xiaohua wasn't necessarily a teacher. He was just a method or path. Suddenly, a kind of vigilance arose in Yuanya's heart. It was as if there was an even more ferocious animal spying on him from behind. It immediately made all the hair on his body stand on end. Which immortal friend has come to visit? Please show yourself. Just as Yuanya was about to open his mouth to warn Xiaohua, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed the reins of the horse. He spoke in a very leisurely tone. Stop! Yuanya pulled the carriage with his arms and turned his head to look at the road they had come from. Immortal friend Xiao is indeed powerful. A voice that was full of praise, but also a trace of disdain came from afar. At this time, Yuanya and the others were on a mountain ridge that wasn't very high. A winding mountain path extended from the bottom of the mountain ridge to the top of the mountain. At the end of the mountain ridge, a cloud of thick smoke was rapidly moving along the mountain path. When it reached the foot of the mountain, the faint sound of horses neighing could be heard. The thick smoke actually floated up from the mountain path and rushed towards Yuanya and the others. The sound of horses neighing could be heard. Yuanya felt a chill in his heart. His steel-like arms couldn't help but tremble. When he looked at the 4 fine horses, they were even more unbearable. Lai lai lai, the same neighing sound, but it was actually a sorrowful cry. The 4 horses' legs went soft and they collapsed on the ground, scared witless. Their 4 hooves trembled and they didn't dare to move. Yuanya jumped up and at the same time he stretched out his hand and grabbed Lu Yi, who had his eyes closed, by the collar and easily landed on the ground. Xiaohua and Xiaojian naturally also easily floated down from the back of their horses. They looked back with some astonishment. When the black smoke flew closer, Yuanya's eyes narrowed and he coldly looked at it. It was a large and sturdy horse. It was about 10 feet tall and its entire body was pitch black. This large horse was very strange. Aside from a few extremely long manes, there were also strange scales covering its body. It looked like an ordinary armor. The black smoke came from the mouth and nose of this large horse. The black smoke rolled and brought with it countless sparks, enveloping the entire large horse. Looking at this strange black horse, there was a 10 feet tall strong man sitting upright. This strong man was as arrogant as the black horse. He was also covered in pitch black armor. Even the armor was emitting wisps of black smoke that enveloped his entire body. It was impossible to see this person's true appearance. The black horse fell from the sky without making a sound. Looking at the place where the black horse landed, the sparks from the black smoke had already melted the mountain rocks on the mountain path. The 4 hooves of the black horse seemed to be floating there. This one is Xiaohua. Greetings, fellow immortal. Xiaohua didn't release his divine sense. He calmly looked at the black horse and the person landing and cupped his hands. You are the Taoist, Xiaohua? A loud and clear voice came from the black smoke, carrying a trace of surprise. That's right, it is this one. Fellow immortal has chased me for so long from the immortal town. How should I address fellow immortal? Xiaohua nodded and said. Hee, that person coldly laughed. The black smoke on his face scattered. His body slightly leaned forward and said in a low voice. This old man was sent by the small gold temple to kill you with that. Taking advantage of his body slightly leaning forward, that person stretched out his hand and actually took a 10 feet long snake spear that was as thick as a duck egg from a hook on the black horse. His 2 legs clamped on the black horse. The black horse jumped up from the ground. Black smoke and sparks filled the air. At the same time, that person waved his hand. The 8 feet long snake spear was like a bolt of black lightning that streaked across the sky. It carried the power of the person and the horse as it pierced towards Xiaohua. Ah! Yuanya suddenly froze. His originally slightly squinted eyes instantly shrank to a point. He didn't know what others were feeling. He only knew that when the person on the horse waved the 8 feet long snake spear, waves of sonic booms came from the spear. The pitch-black lightning attracted all of his attention. His mind couldn't dodge even if he wanted to. Yuanya believed that if he was facing this spear, there was absolutely no way he could dodge it. There was no other way but to die. Buddhist sex bald donkey is really hateful. Yuanya's heart was filled with hatred. He looked at Xiaohua with extreme worry. A sound like a gust of wind came out of nowhere. Then there was a loud bang. Yuanya felt a burst of pain in his ears. Then a wave of air rushed out from not far away. In an instant, his body was lifted up and he was sent flying towards the side of the mountain Lai without waiting for Yuanya to stabilize his body. An even louder horse's mournful cry sounded. The black horse that was previously incomparably arrogant seemed to have been struck by lightning. It trembled violently and quickly retreated. There was even more black smoke and sparks coming out of its mouth and nose. However, the black smoke around its body was blown away by the wave of air just now, revealing 4 slightly trembling hooves. Chapter 32-33. Looking at the black-armored man, he was in an even worse state than Yuanya. His body had been sent flying, and the 8 feet long snake spear in his hand flew diagonally into the air. The black smoke that was originally protecting the black-armored man had now disappeared, revealing a large head under the armor. On the face of this head, there was a pair of broom-like eyebrows and 2 leopard eyes. Now they were filled with horror. On the mountain path, Xiaohua's thin figure stood steadily. The wishful staff in his hand gently twirled one after another, as if the attack just now was child's play. He looked at the embarrassed man in black armor with a smile that was not a smile. Xiaohua said very easily, "If fellow immortal wants to test this Xiao's skill, then say it as soon as possible. If this Xiao didn't know that you don't have Buddhist telekinesis, your life would be left here today." Humph! The black-armored person coldly snorted. Black smoke rose from his body and seeped out from within the black armor, supporting his body that had lost its balance. Immediately, he waved his hand. The black smoke rushed out like a tentacle and wrapped around the snake spear that was about to land on the ground. At the same time, the black horse that he was sitting on stabilized and appeared below him. This old man just wanted to see how strong you are. If we talk about fighting, how can this old man directly compete with you? The black-armored man straightened his back. With a loud bang, several feet of black flames rushed out from his black armor. Amidst the black flames, a strange skeletal horse and skeleton flashed before disappearing. What was special was that the skeleton's eyes flashed with 2 pitch-black dots, and there was a kind of terrifying brilliance. Looking at the powerful black flames, Xiao Jian and the others couldn't help but tremble, and a kind of fear appeared in their eyes. Fortunately, the black flames on the man's black armor flickered in the air for a few breaths, and then quickly disappeared, slowly revealing the true face of the man in black armor. The man in black looked at Xiao Hua with extreme dissatisfaction. Fellow immortal and this Xiao are not enemies. There is no reason to fight to the death. A strange look flashed across Xiao Hua's face. He looked at the man's weathered face and said with a smile, "This Xiao doesn't know why fellow immortal chased me all the way here from the immortal town. Is there something you need this Xiao for?" "I'm Xue Ping." The black-armored man's face turned serious as he hung his snake spear on the hook. He cupped his fists and said, "I'm the Left General of the country of Nampu County. I'm currently the county governor's envoy in charge of disaster relief for the Longevity town." "Oh, so it's General Xue." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and cupped his hands. "I wonder, what advice does General Xue have?" "This Xue has come for 3 matters." Xue Ping's gaze was like lightning as he shot a glance at Xiao Jian who was standing by the side. He said coldly, "The water race flooded Longevity town on Liao River. This matter infuriated the county governor, and he wishes to investigate the root of the problem. He wants to know which demon is so arrogant. As for that so-called princess of the water race, she came from the River Tide Temple. I, Xue, want to bring this Xiao Jian back to meet the county governor. If the king is enraged, I will bring this Xiao Jian before the king." "General Xue, you are mistaken." Xiao Jian was somewhat fearful, but he was abnormally calm in front of Xue Ping. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, he immediately pointed at Lu Yi who was standing by the side and said, "Although this old man is considered the abbot of the River Tide Temple, that girl was brought to the River Tide Temple by this young man named Lu Yi. This old man doesn't know the origin of that girl, so this matter has nothing to do with me." "Oh." Xue Ping raised his eyebrows and snorted coldly. 2 wisps of black smoke spewed out from his nostrils as he said loudly, "Is this true? If you dare to deceive this general can kill you right now." "My lord," although Lu Yi's eyes were filled with fear, he still gritted his teeth and said, "Taoist Master Xiao is right. Little Yun was indeed brought to the River Tide Temple by this lowly one. However, this lowly one doesn't know the origin of little Yun. She was only picked up by this lowly one from Liao River." Lu Yi's voice was trembling as his teeth slightly chattered. Clearly, Xue Ping's terrifying black flames had frightened him. "All right then," Xue Ping laughed sinisterly. "Since you are the source, then follow this general back to Longevity Town." He seeing Lu Yi's footsteps moving towards the black horse despite his fear, Xiao Hua sneered. "General Xue, if this Xiao hadn't left Jiangqing City, this Xiao wouldn't have cared how you treated Lu Yi. However, after leaving Jiangqing City, this Xiao has already taken Lu Yi in as a servant. His coming and going isn't up to him. You need to ask for this Xiao's opinion." Fellow immortal Xiao Xue Ping was stunned. He didn't expect Xiao Hua to stand up for Lu Yi. He asked curiously, "Is this true?" "Whatever this Xiao says is true," Xiao Hua replied proudly. Fellow immortal Xiao Xue Ping hesitated slightly, as if he didn't want to fall out with Xiao Hua. He said faintly, "Liao River's water tribe flooded Longevity Town. This is something that has never happened in Nampu County in the past 50 years. The prefectural governor is furious. I believe that the monarch's imperial edict will arrive soon. Lu Yi is the person involved. This matter is of great importance. This general came to Longevity Town on the orders of the prefectural governor to investigate the truth of the matter. I must bring Lu Yi back to Nampu County." Taoist Lu Yi said timidly, "Please tell me where you are going. I will follow General Xue to Nampu County, and then look for Taoist." "You are only my servant. You have no right to speak here." Xiao Hua waved his hand and ignored Lu Yi. He looked at Xue Ping and said, "This old man has already told Mo Jianli the cause of this matter. Even if Lu Yi returns with you, the matter will still be the same. There won't be another word. This old man has a use for Lu Yi. I won't let you take him away." Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Lu Yi silently lowered his head. He took a few steps back and stood beside Yuanya again. Fellow immortal Xiao Xue Ping was displeased. "This general sees that you are also of the Taoist lineage. That's why I'm talking nicely with you. If it were anyone else, fellow immortal Xiao Hua's tone was the same. This old man also sees that you are a Taoist itinerant cultivator. It's not easy for you to cultivate, so I won't argue with you. Lu Yi is my servant. How can he leave with you just because you say so? If fellow immortal insists on letting Lu Yi go with you, then there's no need to talk about the other two matters. Yu Shueping's eyes widened as he stared straight at Xiaohua. The black horse beneath him snorted and spewed out a lot of black smoke and sparks. Its front hooves kicked the mountain path and melted several deep marks into the ground. For a moment, the entire mountain path was silent. Even the wind had stopped. Xiaohua, you are making things difficult for this old man. Shueping finally spoke. Shueping, if something belongs to this old man, let alone a servant, even if it's a primordial stone, if this old man doesn't agree, no one can take it away. Xiaohua didn't back down and said indifferently, this old man isn't making things difficult for you. This old man. Hee, you call yourself this old man in front of me? Shueping chuckled as if he was about to fly into a rage. Why would Xiaohua be afraid of him? He looked up and down. The wishful staff in his hand was still waving slowly. He looked completely lazy. General Xue Xiaojian hurriedly said from the side. From what I know, Longevity Academy's Principal Zhu Junfeng and the prefectural governor are old friends. Since Principal Zhu knew about this and didn't keep Lu Yi, then Mr. Zhu should be able to explain it to the prefectural governor. Moreover, Mr. Mo Jianli and the others from the Chongyan sect didn't mention this matter. General, there's no need to fuss over this matter. General, you came here for 3 matters. The first matter? I'm afraid it's not the most important, right? Let's talk about the 2 important matters first. Forget it, Shueping thought for a moment after hearing Xiaojian's words. He waved his hand and said, Longevity Academy is in charge of Longevity Town. The prefectural governor basically doesn't interfere. It's just that this matter is too terrible, and the prefectural governor can't ignore it. Since Mr. Mo knows about this matter, this general can also report this matter to the prefectural governor. Xiaohua only smiled faintly, and didn't even say a word of thanks. Since Shueping was given a way out, he said, of course, this general isn't afraid of fellow immortal Xiao. It's just that this general came to Longevity Town not only to investigate the truth of the matter, but also to take charge of the disaster relief of Longevity Town. When this general arrived, I heard from Principal Zhu that fellow immortal Xiao had donated 100,000 dan of rations. Not only did this solve the famine in Longevity Town, it also allowed this general to bring the remaining rations back and distribute them to other disaster areas. Therefore, this general chased after you to thank Daoist Xiao. As for the matter of your servant, this general won't pursue it on account of the rations. I'll have to trouble General Xue. Hearing that Shueping chased after him to thank him, Xiaohua cupped his hands. This matter involves the people of Longevity Town. This Xiao is duty-bound, so there's no need to thank me. 100,000 dan of rations. Xiaojian was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. On the other hand, Yuanya and Lu Yi didn't have any concept of 100,000 dan, so they didn't have any reaction. Shueping touched his black armor and took out an inch-long vermilion jade pendant. He threw it to Xiaohua and said, this is a reward personally issued by my Nanpu Prefecture's prefectural governor. Fellow immortal Xiao has contributed to the people of Longevity Town and donated rations. You can receive this reward. Also, this item has some uses in my country of Xi. Alright, Xiaohua glanced at the ordinary jade pendant and nodded, keeping it in his pocket. What's the third matter, General Xue? Shueping glanced at Xiaojian and the others on his left and transmitted his voice. Fellow immortal Xiao, this old man came here for official matters, but this last matter is a private matter. Oh. Fellow immortal, please speak. Xiaohua was slightly stunned and transmitted his voice back. This old man will first ask, does fellow immortal Xiao hold a position in other countries of hidden immortal continent? Shueping asked somewhat urgently. No. Xiaohua seemed to understand Shueping's thoughts and shook his head slightly. This Xiao is a rogue cultivator. I like to be a free cloud and a wild crane. I don't like any restrictions. Chapter 32-34. Great! Shueping was about to clap his hands as he exclaimed. It's great that fellow immortal Xiao is a rogue cultivator. I wonder if fellow immortal Xiao is interested in the position of Nanpu County's right general? Hee hee, Xiaohua laughed as he waved his hand. This Xiao has already said that I am an idle cloud and wild crane. I am used to being free and do not like any restrictions. Sigh, fellow immortal Xiao. Shui Ping laughed bitterly. 30 years ago, this old man had the same thoughts as you. I wanted to practice Dao techniques and refine my divine ability so that I could be free and unfettered between heaven and earth. However, reality is cruel. Our Taoist sect is already in the middle of the hidden immortal continent. Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects are not fond of us. The primordial stones, spirit herbs, and elixirs that we need for cultivation are not easy to obtain, especially Taoist cultivation techniques. Even if Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects destroy them, they will not fall into our hands. This old man cultivated to the 3rd stage of the 1st grade primordial energy back then but was unable to advance any further. I thought of many methods but to no avail. Thus, I had no choice but to serve under Nampu County's county governor. You see, in just 30 years, this old man has advanced from the 3rd stage of the 1st grade primordial energy to the 2nd stage of the 2nd grade primordial energy. This is something that this old man did not even dare to think about in the past. This old man is unable to tell fellow immortal about the benefits within. However, fellow immortal can think about it. With the power of a county supporting your cultivation, how could you not advance by leaps and bounds? At least it is better than a rogue cultivator, like you finding your own way, right? Shui Ping advised again. Under Nampu County's county governor, there is only this old man as the left general. The cultivation of the other Taoist cultivators are all shallow. This old man alone is unable to support them, and is unable to contend against the other Buddhist sects and Confucian cultivators. When this old man arrived at Longevity Town, I heard Zhu Juanfeng's words and knew that fellow immortal's strength is immense, and that you have the courage to defeat 10,000 men. I immediately rushed here to thank fellow immortal. If this benefit is not given to my Taoist fellow immortal, who else can it be given to? Secondly, I wish to ask fellow immortal to lend this old man a helping hand, and become the right general of Nampu County. With the two of us working together, we will definitely be able to make a name for ourselves in Nampu County, and even request for the position of general from the king. Not only will it make a name for itself in the country of Xi, it will also be extremely beneficial to our cultivation. When he spoke up to hear, Shui Ping sighed again. Actually, in the end, it's because I've seen too few Taoist disciples, and it's even rarer to see a disciple who can charge into battle like fellow Taoist. I can't let go of this opportunity. Xiaohua doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. He only chuckles and says, "Many thanks for General Shui's good intentions. This Xiao really can't go back with you. This Xiao has more important things to do. General Shui, please pay more attention to the right general." Fellow immortal Xiao, are you really not going to reconsider? Shui Ping seemed to have the intention of recruiting him. That strike from the first time they met had left an extremely deep impression on him. No need. If General Shui has nothing else, then this Xiao will take his leave. We will meet again someday. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said. Fellow immortal Xiao, seeing Xiaohua's resolute reply, Shui Ping knew that he couldn't keep Xiaohua, so he hurriedly said, "Since fellow immortal isn't willing to be the right general, then this Shui doesn't dare to force it. However, this Shui has something to ask fellow immortal for help next year. I wonder if fellow immortal is interested?" Xiaohua frowned and immediately thought of the treasure hunt in the West Sea. He looked at Shui Ping and smiled bitterly. "General Shui, could it be that you've discovered another lost treasure somewhere?" "Ah, fellow immortal." Shui Ping was shocked and asked curiously, "Fellow immortal knows? What does this Xiao know?" Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "This Xiao isn't interested in treasure hunting. General Shui should find someone else." "Sigh, fellow immortal. Do you think this old man doesn't want to find someone else?" Shui Ping smiled bitterly. This old man is familiar with some Taoist disciples, but they are all useless. The one with profound cultivation is a Confucian disciple, and that place happened to be a Taoist ruin. I heard that there are ancient elixirs hidden inside that are extremely beneficial for breaking through bottlenecks. This old man also needs to prepare for the bottleneck of the second grade of essence force. Second grade of essence force, ah. Xiao Hua muttered to himself and thought. This hidden immortal continent is very strange. How could Taoists be exterminated by them? What is the truth behind it? If this Xiao wants to return to the Donrain continent, these Taoist ruins are probably the same as the Buddhist ruins on the Donrain continent. I have to take a look, right? If a mere second-grade essence force cultivator can take a look, then what's wrong with this Xiao going? After all, the Taoist sects in the hidden immortal continent have already declined. It's good to be able to help a Taoist disciple. All right, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded. This Xiao can lend you a hand. However, this Xiao also has a matter to trouble General Shui. Please speak. Shui Ping didn't find it strange at all and smiled. If fellow immortal Xiao has any conditions, feel free to state them. You and I are villains before gentlemen. Xiao Hua waved his hand. It's not much of a condition. It's just that this Xiao is looking for a place called Lu Town. If General Shui can help this Xiao find a place called Lu Town in the hidden immortal continent, this Xiao will definitely help you. Hiss. Shui Ping took a deep breath and looked at Xiao Hua. His expression was strange, but he couldn't tell what he was thinking. After a moment he sneered again. Fellow immortal Xiao, are you making fun of this old man? If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Why make such a boring condition? Who knows how many countries there are in the 9 great provinces of the hidden immortal continent? Who knows how many villages and towns there are? How can this old man find the Lu Town you're looking for in the vast sea of villages and towns? Sigh, it's really not as simple as the Xiao and Xiao Jian thought. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart and spoke again. General Shui is wrong. This Xiao isn't lying. This Xiao is indeed looking for Lu Town. Since General Shui is the left general of the country of Shiznanpu County, you must have some conveniences in this area. All right, Shui Ping saw that Xiao Hua wasn't speaking nonsense and nodded slightly. This Shui can help you search, but this old man is powerless. I'll search as much as I can, right? In that case, many thanks to General Shui. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and added another sentence. How about this? If General Shui is only searching in Yuzhou, then how about adding a sect called Misty Sect? Misty Sect? What sect is that? Confucian or Taoist? Shui Ping frowned again and asked patiently. This Xiao also doesn't know. Xiao Hua spread his hands and smiled bitterly. This Xiao is also helping others search. Since you can help this Xiao can also help General. All right. Shui Ping nodded. If it's only Yuzhou, this Shui can give it a try. Since General Shui has promised this Xiao, then this Xiao will also promise General Shui. When this Xiao is free next year, this Xiao will go to Nampu County to look for you. How about that? Xiao Hua didn't dawdle and agreed very swiftly. Great. Shui Ping clapped. With fellow immortal Zhao's help, this matter will be settled. As he spoke, Shui Ping took out a pitch-black token from his armor and handed it to Xiao Hua. Fellow immortal Xiao, this is this old man's token. When you come to Nampu County next year, you can use this to find this old man. This old man will return today and make preparations. I will quietly await Immortal Senior's arrival in my residence. All right. Xiao Hua grabbed the token and said, when this Xiao is free next year, this Xiao will go look for General. All right, this Shui will take his leave. Shui Ping bowed on the horse and patted the back of the black horse's neck. The black horse raised its head and neighed. Black smoke and sparks spewed out from its nose and mouth. Black fog also appeared from its 4 hooves. It carried Shui Ping and charged into the air towards Longevity Town. This Shui Ping didn't dare to jump off the black horse from start to finish. Xiao Hua sneered as he watched the black fog fly away. It's not only because he's wary of this Xiao, but also because his cultivation is connected to this black horse. This kind of cultivation method seems to be somewhat similar to Huan Country's beast cultivation method. Seeing Shui Ping fly away with the black horse, Xiao Hua retracted his gaze. The 4 horses that had collapsed on the ground due to the black horse's arrival now stood up again. They all snorted and sweat dripped from their bodies. It was obvious that they were extremely frightened. Damn it, what kind of monster is this black horse Shui Ping? Could it be a demon from the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm? With this horse, is there still a need to fight on the battlefield? As long as this horse neighed a few times, Wouldn't the other horses collapse on the ground? His title of Left General is truly a waste. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw that the horse couldn't even pull the carriage. Yuanya, pack up. We'll rest here for a while. Xiaohua saw that there was no way to leave, and could only instruct. Yes. Yuanya's reply was always concise. Louis walked over with a nervous expression and said in a low voice, Taoist priest, this little one thanks you. Go and comprehend it. Xiaohua rolled his eyes at him. If you can't even comprehend such a simple incantation, you might as well have been taken away by that charcoal head. Being this old man's servant is truly shameful. Yes, this little one will continue to comprehend. Lu Yi's somewhat long face immediately smiled, and hurriedly went to help Yuanya tidy up the horses. However, how could Yuanya allow him to do so? He was still chased to the side and sat there, closing his eyes to continue his interrupted comprehension. Senior Xiaojian walked over and said with a smile, although Shueping's actions are somewhat reckless, what he said is extremely true. Senior Xiao should agree to head to Nampu County. Oh. Xiaohua raised his brows and said with a smile, if what fellow Taoist Xiao said is the same as Shueping, then there's no need to say anything. This Xiao has his own plans. This Xiao doesn't care about the few conditions he mentioned. If you have other ideas, feel free to say them. Xiao Jian was somewhat embarrassed. He knew that Xiaohua was very dissatisfied with him for pushing Lu Yi out. However, in reality, Xiao Yun was brought to the Tidal River Temple by Lu Yi. If he didn't hear Xiaohua and the others mention it on the way, he wouldn't have known that Xiao Yun was the princess that the Water Tribe wanted. Xiaohua was obviously dissatisfied with Xiao Jian, and Xiao Jian himself felt wronged. Chapter 32-35. Junior doesn't know about the Thousand Demons' sacred realm and the Pure Land. Xiao Jian smiled. But on the hidden immortal continent, if one wants to make a name for himself, whether it's a Confucian cultivator or a Taoist, one must have a strong backing. Otherwise, it's impossible to step into the ranks of cultivation, especially my Taoist. Right now you can teach Lu Yi the basic incantation and let him enter the foundation building stage. However, if he doesn't have the support of spiritual herbs and medicinal pills, I'm afraid it will be impossible for him to reach the enlightenment and fusion stages by himself. Senior has already cultivated to the 3rd level of origin energy, and is the target of recruitment for the prefectural governors and monarchs of various countries. Senior can take advantage of this. No need to say more. Xiaohua waved his hand. This Xiao has no interest in this matter. Yes, Junior understands. Xiao Jian hurriedly shut his mouth, but after thinking for a moment he couldn't help but say, actually Senior can also hand over the matter of finding Luzhin to Shueping. The country of Xi is neither big nor small in Yu province, and has a good relationship with the nearby countries. It's hard to say about other provinces, but Yu province should be able to find out. This old man has already entrusted it to him. Xiaohua said indifferently. Oh, by the way, it seems like you're very familiar with the situation in Yu province. Yes, Junior did a lot of homework in this area back then. Xiao Jian's eyes flashed with joy. He finally got the words he wanted to say. Oh, then let this old man ask you. Xiaohua seemed to be interested. How many Taoist sects do you know? How many Taoist rogue cultivators do you know? This Xiao Jian didn't expect Xiaohua to suddenly ask this, and was somewhat caught off guard. However, he hesitated slightly and smiled bitterly. Senior, you know that Taoist sects are not allowed to be established on the hidden immortal continent. How do you want Junior to answer? His Xiaohua was slightly surprised. To be honest, for the past 10 days, he had been trying to find out the specific situation of the Taoist sects in the hidden immortal continent. However, until now he hadn't seen a cultivator with a cultivation level that could directly talk to him. Not to mention Xiao Jian, even Shueping just now was only at the foundation establishment realm. Their strength determined their vision. They wouldn't give Xiaohua a real answer. However, Xiaohua still did not expect that on the hidden immortal continent, the situation of the Taoists was so bad. Of course, this situation was much better than when the Buddhist sect and Confucian cultivators were on Donrain continent. Xiaohua's eyes turned again, and he said with a smile, not on the surface but in the dark? This I don't know. Xiao Jian smiled bitterly. When I stepped into Taoist cultivation, I was already warned. He could cultivate, but he absolutely could not establish a sect. If he did, the Confucian cultivators would definitely send people to exterminate him. This was the iron law of the hidden immortal continent. Is that bullshit immortal Buddha grand ceremony supposed to be like this? Then why do you still want to cultivate Tao techniques? Why didn't he choose Confucian cultivation? Even the Buddhist sect is better than the Taoist sect. Xiaohua asked with a smile that was not a smile. I'll let Senior know. Xiao Jian smiled bitterly. This isn't something that Junior can choose. My single Liang kingdom was founded on Taoism, and I was chosen to be the crown prince since young. Of course, I have to cultivate Qi and cultivate Taoism. Xiaohua stared blankly and asked curiously, what? Taoism is not allowed to establish a sect, but if you establish a country with Taoism, you can? That means, there are many countries supported by Taoism in the hidden immortal continent? Indeed. Xiao Jian nodded. But Senior is too optimistic. In the hidden immortal continent, most of the countries are established by Confucian cultivators, and there are very few Taoists. And now there are a few, replaced by the Buddhist sect. That's really strange. Xiaohua was especially puzzled. This was somewhat illogical. Could it be that it's okay for this old man to support a country? Of course you can. There is no doubt. Xiao Jian's eyes lit up, and he said with certainty, with Senior's current cultivation, you can barely be the state teacher of a country. If your cultivation is a bit higher, you can naturally control a country with your own will. Hihi, Xiaohua smiled. I'm afraid it's not that simple, right? Is the king willing? Xiao Jian showed some awkwardness and said with a smile, of course it has to be mutually willing. Moreover, being the state teacher is different from being the left general. You have to contend with the nearby countries, and you have to help the king expand his territory. Forget it. It's not tiring enough. Xiaohua waved his hand, seeming very dull. But if you stop the state teacher and control a country, you can easily get all the things you need for cultivation. Xiao Jian was a bit anxious and quickly explained. My cultivation is still shallow, so I don't dare to think too much. Xiaohua raised his head and said, Yuanya has already prepared the carriage, let's hurry. Yes, Xiao Jian was a little dejected. It was not easy for him to say some of his thoughts in the conversation just now, but he was mercilessly interrupted by Xiaohua again. He really did not know why Xiaohua, who looked very approachable, was so good to the ruffian Lu Yi and was equally good to the uneducated Yuanya. Why didn't he want to listen to his thoughts? In the following few days, the number of carriages decreased, as if they had entered a remote village. Xiaohua thought that next, the main road would be replaced by a small road, and the small road would be replaced by a wasteland. He was afraid that he could only ride a horse and walk. However, in less than 2 days, the number of carriages increased again. The main road did not show any signs of narrowing, but instead became more spacious and flat. While Xiaohua was feeling a bit strange, before he could ask Xiao Jian, he saw that several li away in front of him was a large and magnificent river. Above the river, there was a stone bridge that spanned across both sides. Soldiers that had never been seen in the past 10 days were now standing on both sides of the bridge, wearing neat armor, and holding bright weapons in their hands. They were valiant and high-spirited. Xiao Jian, where is this? What kind of bridge is this? Why is it so important? Xiaohua was a bit puzzled. When he got closer, he asked Xiao Jian, you actually need to send so many soldiers to guard it? I'll let Senior know. Xiao Jian looked up. This is the border of the country of Xi. This river is called Fanli River, which is the border between the country of Xi and the country of Jiasa. The people of Xi call this bridge Fanji Bridge, while the country of Jiasa calls it Li Bei Bridge. This bridge connects the country of Xi and the country of Jiasa, so the two countries naturally have to send a large number of soldiers to guard it. As long as we cross this bridge, we will reach the border of the country of Jiasa. Ah? Xiaohua almost cried out. This is the border of the country of Xi? Xiao Jian, tell this old man, this country of Xi. How big is it? At this moment, Xiaohua finally realized that he was a country bumpkin. He always thought that the country of Xi was as big as the country of Xi in the cultivation world. Who would have thought that after walking for a few days, he actually walked? Yes, walked, not flew, and reached the border of the country of Xi. Thinking back to a few days ago when he casually brushed off Shueping didn't suspect him at all. It turns out that Shueping knew that he could rush back to the country of Xi next year, even if he had to walk. Xiao Jian clearly didn't understand Xiaohua's astonishment and replied curiously. Previously, this junior has already told senior that the country of Xi is considered a medium-sized country in the Yu province. It should have a radius of 1,000 li. Nanpu County is also the county closest to the country of Jiasa. Although Longevity Town is also the closest town to the country of Jiasa, it is still about the same. As for the country of Jiasa, according to what this junior knows, its radius is only about 800 li, smaller than the country of Xi. And on the other side of the country of Jiasa is the country of Bronze Pillar. The country of Bronze Pillar is rich in bronze and its territory is twice the size of the country of Xi. It should be about 2,000 li. It is said that the country of Bronze Pillar is currently fighting with its neighbor country of Jiang. If there are no accidents, the country of Bronze Pillar should be able to win. Then, after the country of Bronze Pillar annexes the country of Jiang, it will expand to about 3,000 li. Damn it, this Xiao understands. Xiaohua almost roared from the bottom of his heart. No wonder this hidden immortal continent has provinces as the boundary. It is within these provinces that the countries are divided. It turns out that these countries are all extremely small and can't be compared to the countries of Xi, Meng and Lian on the Xiaoyu continent. If this is the case, not to mention one country, even if this Xiao supports 5 or 10 countries, so what? It's just a territory of 10,000 li. Looking at Xiaohua's green and red face, Xiao Jian didn't know what Xiaohua was thinking. Xiaohua didn't say anything and he didn't dare to ask. However, when he saw the side of the bridge, the line of carriages waiting for the soldiers to inspect and pay, he immediately understood. He hurriedly explained, "Senior, although we need to pay taxes to cross the border between the two countries, we are Taoist disciples. Yuanya and Lu Yi are considered our servants. There is no need to pay for them. Senior, you don't need to worry." Am I that stingy? Xiaohua unhappily glared at Xiao Jian, but he was still very surprised. It was just a short period of 10 days. How could Xiao Jian know that he was stingy? Yes, Xiao Jian hurriedly replied. Oh, that's right, this Jiasa country is only 800 li, it's a small country. Then why is the Copper Pillar country giving up so much? Xiaohua asked, puzzled. Xiao Jian understood something and said with a smile. Didn't this junior already say it before? Every country has an imperial advisor and the others, and even has the support of various Confucian sections. Although this Jiasa country is small, it should have the support of the Chongyan sect and other Confucian sects, so the Copper Pillar country does not dare to invade. As for the country of Jiang, if nothing unexpected happens, it should be supported by a Taoist senior. At this point, Xiao Jian's eyes flashed with a hint of sternness and he added, of course, in the past few decades, the Buddhist sect has infiltrated the hidden immortal continent too quickly. Perhaps the situation in the country of Xi has long exceeded this junior's knowledge. And there is a high possibility that there is an expert from the Buddhist sect secretly presiding over the country of Jiang. No matter where you go, power, benefits, and strength cannot be separated. Xiaohua sighed and did not ask any more questions. Chapter 32-36. Just as Xiao Jian said, there were many carriages and merchants waiting to be inspected by the Xi soldiers. They passed through the border and entered the bridge. Meanwhile, Xiao Jian spurred his horse on, not even bothering to line up. He galloped through the center of the road, heading towards the soldiers who were holding weapons and guarding the bridge. Taoist priest, please wait. One of the soldiers walked out and raised his hand, shouting, please take out the official document for inspection. Boundless holy man Xiao Jian called out his Taoist name. He reached into his bosom and took out a square jade clip. He handed it over and said with a smile, this is my official name. Please check it, General. Taoist priest, please wait a moment. The soldier took the jade clip without looking at it, and hurried towards the side of the bridge where several tents were located. Not long after, a strong man wearing armor with a sword hanging from his waist quickly walked over with the jade clip in his hand. He bowed and said, "This General Li Xinyu greets Taoist priest Xiao." Xiao Jian greets General Li. Xiao Jian's face was indifferent. He raised his left hand and saluted, saying, "I brought my disciples and seniors to travel around Yu province. At this moment, we are heading towards Jiasa country. Please make an exception for us." Taoist priest Xiao, you can naturally bring your disciples to Jiasa country. This general only needs to inspect the carriage. Li Xinyu looked at Xiao Jian, then looked at Xiao Hua and the others, and said with a smile, "But you only wrote Taoist Xiao and a boy named Yuanya in the official document. There are still a few blanks left behind, and the remaining 2 boys. How dare you?" Xiao Jian shouted, raising his hand. He looked at Xiao Hua very respectfully and said, "This is the senior of this old man's sect. How can this old man's name be written on this old man's official document?" This general greets Immortal Master." Li Xinyu was shocked and hurriedly bowed in front of Xiao Hua. After all, for a young man to be called a senior by an old man. This young man immediately had the demeanor of an immortal master. Xiao Hua nodded and waved his hand. Li Xinyu couldn't help but stand up. Immortal elder Li Xinyu straightened up, swallowed his saliva, and said nervously, "I know that Immortal Master is a senior expert, but does Immortal Master do you have an official document?" "This old man doesn't have any official documents." Xiao Hua shook his head. "This old man also doesn't need any official documents." This Li Xinyu gritted his teeth and said awkwardly, "The order I received is that anyone who comes from the border in front of me must either pay customs duties or have an official document, so that's how it is." Xiao Hua nodded. "This old man won't make things difficult for you." Senior Xiao Jian smiled and said, "As long as you fly over this bridge, you won't have to pay any tariffs." Xiao Hua unhappily looked at Xiao Jian. He clapped his hand and took out a low-grade spirit stone, throwing it to Li Xinyu and said, "This old man doesn't have the gold and silver used in the secular world. This is a primeval stone, what do you think?" Immortal Master Li Xinyu didn't expect Xiao Hua to be so amiable and actually take out a celestial stone. He hurriedly and carefully caught it, smiling apologetically. "You don't have to do this. The order is just to prevent people from pretending to be outsiders. Since Immortal Master is an outsider, you naturally don't have to pay customs duties." "How can this old man take back what he took out?" Xiao Hua said indifferently. "You are also a general of a region, so you still have to abide by this order. Besides, this old man doesn't care about a single primeval stone." Yes, this little one understands." Li Xinyu lowered his head. "Can this old man leave now?" Xiao Hua asked politely again. Li Xinyu hurriedly stretched out his hand and pulled the reins of Xiao Hua's horse, saying respectfully, "This little one will send Immortal Master over." Thank you for your trouble." Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. "Damn it, a single primeval stone. It's gone just like that." Xiao Jian watched as Li Xinyu put the primeval stone into his pocket. His eyes turned into hooks, wanting to hook the primeval stone out of Li Xinyu's pocket. He complained in his heart. Li Xinyu led Xiao Hua's horse all the way to the middle of the bridge before stopping. He bowed and said, "Immortal Master, after crossing this bridge, the border of Jiasa country will be there. This little one doesn't dare to cross, so this little one can only send you here." "Okay, thank you General Li." Xiao Hua nodded his head and patted the horse. The horse took small steps and crossed the blood-red mark in the middle of the bridge. At this moment, a burst of noise that sounded like the chirping of birds came from the distant horizon. At the same time, a gust of wind blew, causing the various flags on the bridge to flutter in the wind. Lai, the pitiful horse let out a mournful cry, as if it was extremely scared. It kicked its 4 hooves, and was about to rush down the bridge. Xiao Hua frowned and coldly snorted. The horse immediately felt its body become heavier. Don't talk about running, it couldn't even stand stably. Just as the horse was about to collapse on the ground, Xiao Hua floated down and patted the horse. The horse obediently lay down on the bridge. Caw caw caw. The sound of birds chirping turned into a burst of horse laughter. It came from the right side of the bridge. A black cloud flew over from there, and quickly passed by everyone's eyes. Xiao Hua's gaze swept over, and saw an extremely ugly demon within the black cloud. Its body was covered in black fur, but it was holding an almost naked woman in its embrace. The woman was as beautiful as a flower, her skin was whiter than snow. Her lotus-like arms were wrapped around the demon's neck. The black and white contrast between the two people was extremely clear within the black cloud. These two people didn't seem to care about the secular people on the ground at all. They seemed to be teasing them as they rushed forward and disappeared. See, this, isn't that a demon? Xiao Hua was a little shocked. Looking at the trembling Li Xinyu not far away, he asked curiously, how can it come and go so freely in Jiasa country and Shi country? Good Senior Immortal knows. Li Xinyu lowered his voice and said, this demon is not from my Shi country. In the middle of Jiasa country, Bronze Pillar country and Jiang country, there is a black cloud ridge. It is a place that the three countries are unable to take care of. If I'm not wrong, this demon should be from the Black Cloud Ridge. Oh, Senior Immortal, if you go to Bronze Pillar country, you naturally won't be able to, but if you still want to go from Bronze Pillar country to Jiang country, then you will have to pass by the Black Cloud Ridge. Senior Immortal must be careful. I heard that many people have been buried there. Yes, this old man knows. Xiao Hua nodded. He floated onto the horse and was about to enter Jiasa country. Senior Immortal. Senior Immortal. Another voice came from behind Xiao Hua and the rest. Oh. Xiao Hua turned his head to look, only to see an old man with white hair and a beard catching up to them while panting. Xiao Hua looked at the old man and frowned. It was obvious that this was an old man from the secular world. He looked to be around 60 years old. To be honest, compared to Xiao Hua's age, he was really like a child. However, Xiao Hua looked to be in his 20s. When facing this kind of white-haired old man, he felt a kind of pressure in his heart. He would naturally call him an old man, and would also naturally call him a brat. Could this be the legendary judging a book by its cover? Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and laughed bitterly to himself. What's the matter, old man? Fortunately, before Xiao Hua could speak, Xiao Jian had already stood in front of Xiao Hua. Greetings, Taoist. The old man bowed respectfully. This old man is Qi Jin from the Sun Hai Trading Company. I came to look for Taoist. There is something I would like to discuss with Taoist. As he spoke, the old man glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Jian frowned and said curiously, I and the others don't have a place to stay, and we don't have any training grounds. If old man has any wish to fulfill, I'm afraid I and the others won't be able to satisfy it. Taoist Qi Jin's face had a trace of pleading as he said in a low voice, this old man doesn't want to pray for the gods. This old man has another matter to discuss with Taoist. If possible, I would like to ask Taoist to cross the bridge with your master, and wait by the roadside. This old man will explain everything. As he spoke, Qi Jin took out a small silver ingot, and stuffed it into Xiao Jian's hand. He said, in addition, my Sun Hai Trading Company will pay for the customs for Taoist and the others to enter Jiasa country. I only hope that Taoist can hear about this matter. Xiao Jian touched the silver ingot, and felt it was slippery. His heart was already blooming with joy. He turned to look at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, Senior, what do you think? Hee, you have already agreed, so why ask this old man? Xiao Hua smiled. At this time, he already had a plan for the road ahead. Everything was just a kind of experience. No matter what the old man's request was, in Xiao Hua's eyes, it might not be difficult. Even Xiao Hua had some intuition that it was related to the evil spirit in the black clouds. I's master has agreed. I will wait for you at the front. Xiao Jian looked at the many carriages lined up behind the old man, and knew that this was the Sun Hai Trading Company's fleet. It would take them a lot of time to cross the border. Yes, thank you Taoist, thank you Immortal. Qi Jin was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. He bowed and hurriedly ran to the back. Following his shouts, a burst of laughter rang out. Some of the people next to the carriages saluted Xiao Hua and the others. Xiao Hua didn't care about these people's thanks. Instead, he asked in astonishment, Xiao Jian, Could it be that, after crossing the border between Xi and Jiasa country, not only do we have to pay customs in Xi, but also in Jiasa country? Senior Xiao Jian pulled the reins of his horse and followed Xiaohua down the bridge. He explained, "That's right. However, people and goods are different. People only have to pay 10 copper coins for crossing the border, while goods have to pay according to the value of the goods. Isn't this robbery?" Xiaohua immediately thought of the perverted sea beast he encountered in the West Sea. What was the difference between this and a sea beast? If there was any difference, it would be that they were openly using the banner of righteousness, making it impossible for people to avoid. Chapter 32-37. Hahaha, Senior, this is different. If the goods of Sunhai Trading Company are bought in Xi, there must be an official document to pay the tax. Here there is no need to pay. If the Sunhai Trading Company is passing through Xi, they have already paid the tax when entering Xi. When leaving Xi, there is no need to pay again. Xiao Jian explained with a smile. However, looking at Qi Jin's appearance, it seems that they have traded in Xi. Moreover, there is no official document to pay the tax. At the border, they must pay a certain percentage of the tax. Then when they enter Jiasa country, they must pay the tax. Xiaohua asked. That is natural. This tax is from Xi, the other side is from Jiasa country. Xiao Jian nodded. Xiaohua sighed with emotion. Alas, this business is not easy. The tax is an important part of a country's income and expenditure. It is impossible to exempt it. Xiao Jian said with familiarity. Of course, it is not only for business, but also for anything in this world. Even if it is to be the ruler of a country. While speaking, several people went down the bridge. Sure enough, under the bridge, there were some people similar to the soldiers of Xi. However, their armor and flags were completely different. Everyone entered the border of Jiasa country. Half a mile away from the bridge, there was a tea shed. Xiaohua looked at the scorching sun above his head and ordered them to rest near the tea shed. After waiting for a full meal's time, they saw nearly 20 carriages led by Qi Jin coming out of the soldiers' blockade. When Qi Jin saw the carriages parked in front of the tea shed, the disappointment on his face immediately disappeared. He urged the horse under him and hurriedly brought a man dressed in martial arts clothes to the tea shed. There were not many people in the tea shed. Xiaohua and the other three were sitting at a shabby table. Except for Yuanya, who was drinking cup after cup of tea, the other three closed their eyes and did not speak. Daoist Qi Jin rushed into the tea shed. He originally wanted to talk to Xiaohua, but after thinking for a moment, he walked to Xiao Jian and cupped his fist. Our humble trading company has too many goods. It is a bit troublesome to pass the customs. Sorry for the long wait. No matter, Xiao Jian opened his eyes and smiled. We are just traveling. Whether we walk or lie down, it is all cultivation. This wait is nothing. Daoist is really a master. What you said is really profound. Qi Jin looked at Xiao Jian with an extremely admiring gaze. This old man and the others have worked so hard for Adu's item. I don't know when we'll be free. When it's time to be free, you'll definitely be free. When you can't be free, just say it. Xiao Jian was much more familiar with these words than Xiaohua. Yes, this old man understands. Qi Jin put his palms together sincerely. However, when he saw Xiao Jian's unfriendly expression, he immediately understood. He put his palms down awkwardly and pointed at the burly man beside him. Escort Chen, this is the Daoist Xiao I mentioned just now. Come and meet him. I'm Chen Kai from Fuwei Escort Agency. Nice to meet you, Taoist masters. The burly man stood up and cupped his fists in greeting. His voice was loud and clear, but there was a valiance and unwillingness in his eyes. Boundless holy man, Chen Zhuang, greetings. Xiao Jian seemed to understand something and returned the greeting with a smile. He then looked at Qi Jin and said, Elder Qi, what do you mean by this? This Qi Jin was a little embarrassed and explained his intentions. It was as Xiao Jian had expected. The distance from the border of Jiasa country to the nearest city was about 100 miles. There was a section of the mountain road that was quite dangerous. There were 3 groups of mountain bandits alone. These mountain bandits often went down the mountain to rob, and the merchants passing by were all terrified. Jiasa country had sent troops to kill them several times, but they returned without success. In the end, they simply ignored them and let these mountain bandits fend for themselves. Since the mountain bandits were born, how could they be destroyed? Although the leader and number of the mountain bandits were constantly changing, these mountain bandits had become a malignant tumor at the border of Jiasa country. Unfortunately, there was only one main road from the kingdom of Shi to the kingdom of Jiasa. On the left side of the mountain road, there was an impassable forest. Therefore, even if a merchant like the Sunhai Trading Company knew that there were bandits here, they could only brace themselves and pass through. At best, they could hire more armed escorts like the Fuwei Escort Agency to protect their own trading company. Qi Jin had just seen the Shi general's unusual respect for Xiao Hua, so he had a sudden idea to ask Xiao Hua and the others to protect him through this section of the mountain road where the mountain bandits were rampant. Although Xiao Hua and the others were not escorts, Qi Jin's lack of trust in Fuwei Escort Agency and his behavior of seeking medical treatment halfway through the journey made Escort Chen extremely dissatisfied. Chen Kai didn't say anything, but how could Xiao Jian not see the disdain and even a faint hostility in his eyes? He had seen this kind of look in Zen Master Ming Yu's eyes more than once. If I had known, I wouldn't have collected Qi Jin's silver. Xiao Jian was somewhat regretful. After listening to Qi Jin's explanation, he already understood that these mountain bandits couldn't have appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, they lived so freely at such a close distance to the border. If it weren't for the fact that they had nothing to do with the border guards of Jiasa country, Xiao Jian wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. As for Qi Jin's intention, Xiao Jian was even more aware. Qi Jin didn't necessarily want to rely on their martial strength. What he valued was Li Xianyu's respect for Xiao Hua. Qi Jin thought that since they were familiar with Li Xianyu and the others, when they encountered the mountain bandits ahead, they would definitely make the mountain bandits hesitate. As for this reason, Qi Jin couldn't tell Chen Kai or Xiao Jian directly. He could only use a probing tone to ask Xiao Jian and the others to protect them. Damn it, we're all smart people. After Xiao Jian felt regretful, he subconsciously looked at Xiao Hua. It was obvious that they couldn't have any relationship with the border guards. Li Xianyu's respect was for Xiao Hua and that piece of vitality stone. Facing the mountain bandits, not to mention himself, even Yuanya might not be able to protect himself. How could Xiao Jian dare to make a decision? Oh, Escort Chen. Contrary to Xiao Jian's expectations, a trace of joy flashed across Xiao Hua's face. He asked, "Let this old man ask you, do you know the Lotus Escort Agency?" Lotus Escort Agency? A trace of vigilance flashed across Chen Kai's eyes. He asked curiously, "Taoist knows the people of the escort agency? Tell this old man, do you know the Lotus Escort Agency?" Hearing Chen Kai's answer, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed. He seemed to be somewhat ecstatic as he asked hurriedly. Chen Kai shivered. Xiao Hua's gaze was like lightning, as if it pierced into his heart, giving him a big fright. The dissatisfaction in his heart had long been thrown out of the highest clouds. He hurriedly replied, "Good immortal elder knows. This one has never heard of the Lotus Escort Agency." Xiao Hua snorted coldly, appearing extremely dissatisfied. Immortal elder Chen Kai's forehead was somewhat sweaty. Facing Xiao Hua's dissatisfaction, he felt an indescribable feeling of oppression and powerlessness. It was as if facing Xiao Hua was a huge mountain that could crush him into meat paste at any time. Now he truly knew how powerful Xiao Hua was. This one has heard of the Lotus Escort Agency, Swallow Escort Agency, Zhengfeng Escort Agency, but I've never heard of the Lotus Escort Agency. What about the Misty Sect? Xiao Hua knew that there wouldn't be any definite answer, but he still asked in a low voice. This one has also never heard of it. Sweat dripped down Chen Kai's face. His knees almost went soft. He really couldn't face Xiao Hua's incredulous gaze. This lowly one is just an ordinary escort. What immortal elder is talking about? This lowly one doesn't know. Who? Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. He sighed again in his heart. AI Escort. Isn't this one's second brother an escort? Lotus Escort Agency Misty Sect. Why should this one make things difficult for an ordinary escort? Xiaohua let out a breath. Chen Kai immediately felt that the danger that could easily crush him to death had suddenly disappeared. Only then did he involuntarily stretch out his hand and wipe the sweat off his forehead. His heart also relaxed as if a huge rock had been removed. Immortal Elder Qi Jin naturally saw Chen Kai's sorry state, and was even more overjoyed in his heart. Seeing that Xiaohua's expression was good, he hurriedly said in a low voice, "This old one is so bold as to ask Immortal Elder to come with us. We will properly serve Immortal Elder along the way." Ai Xiaohua ignored Qi Jin and raised his head to look at the road outside the tea shed. His gaze was somewhat blurred, as if he saw the end of the road, and also the end of time. It was when Qi Jin mentioned the escort agency and the escorts that those distant memories began to appear like fragments. Lotus Flower Escort Agency, Armed Escort Agency, escorts and other unfamiliar terms appeared like a fountain. He couldn't help but have the urge to ask. He really wanted to get what he wanted from this escort called Chen Kai. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was still disappointed. Perhaps they're not far away? Xiaohua's heart was somewhat moved. The arena, the village, the escort agency, these are all things that Xiaoyu continent doesn't have. They're all from this one's memory. Senior Xiao Jian's voice was indistinct again, as if it came from the horizon, and woke Xiaohua up from his homesickness. "We have to go either way. Why don't we go together?" "Up to you." Xiaohua's face was as calm as water, and it was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. However, Xiao Jian already knew that Xiaohua was somewhat unhappy, so he hurriedly said, "If Senior likes peace and quiet, we won't follow the caravan." "There's no need." Xiaohua waved his hand. "If we want to follow, then let's follow. It's good to be able to give them a helping hand." "Yes, Junior understands." Xiao Jian's mouth revealed a smile. He turned to Qi Jin and said, "Why aren't you thanking Daoist Xiao?" Yes, thank you Daoist Xiao, thank you Daoist Xiao." Qi Jin was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. He then pulled Xiao Jian's sleeve and hurriedly left, as if he had something to say. Chen Kai couldn't stand Xiaohua's imposing manner, and also took the opportunity to slip away. Seeing that everyone had left, Xiaohua looked at Yuanya and said, "Yuanya, why haven't you spoken these days? Have you had enough of this tea?" "Daoist, Junior doesn't know how to speak. I might as well not speak." Yuanya drank another cup of tea, and placed the somewhat tattered teacup on the table. "Junior will go get a carriage." Chapter 32-38. With that, Yuanya hurriedly got up and hurriedly walked out. Xiaohua looked at Yuanya's back, and then looked at Lu Yi, who was sitting beside Yuanya and had closed his eyes to think after drinking a few mouthfuls of tea. Xiaohua brought Lu Yi out of the tea shed. The carriages of Sun Hai Trading Company had already started to move. Qi Jin and Xiao Jian came out from behind a big tree. Both of them had a satisfied expression, and seemed to be chatting happily. As for Chen Kai, he was already riding a horse in front of the carriages. Louis Xiaohua's gaze swept across the tea shed. The owner of the tea shed was lowering his head to clean the tables while secretly glancing at the carriages. He coldly snorted and turned to Lu Yi and asked, "Have you comprehended this cultivation technique?" "Yes, Immortal Elder knows." Hearing Xiaohua's question, Lu Yi opened his eyes and revealed a complicated expression. "Under Immortal Elder's guidance, this little one has already comprehended it yesterday." "Ah? You already comprehended it yesterday? How many days has it been?" Xiaohua was shocked. He looked at Lu Yi from top to bottom. After all, Xiaohua was not a competent master, and didn't know how to teach other people cultivation methods. Lu Yi was just an ordinary person, and had never come into contact with Taoist cultivation methods before. This Lu Yi was a little shy, but his eyes revealed a trace of pride. He whispered, "If it is as Immortal Elder said, this little one has already comprehended it. Then, can you sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth?" Xiaohua asked impatiently. Lu Yi shook his head regretfully. "This little one cannot sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that Immortal Elder spoke of. I don't know if this little one's comprehension is wrong or this little one does not have this kind of aptitude." And Xiaohua nodded. "Get on the carriage, this old man wants to hear your comprehension." Yuanya watched Xiaohua bring Lu Yi onto the carriage, and then the carriage became silent. Although he could see their mouths moving, he could not hear anything and knew that this was Xiaohua's technique. He sighed slightly and drove the carriage to the back of the Sunhai Trading Company. However, when he sighed, the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. This smile was somewhat mysterious. After about half a meal's worth of time, Xiaohua, who was inside the carriage, sighed like Yuanya. He looked at Lu Yi and smiled bitterly. Lu Yi, it's not that this old man is praising you, but your aptitude is incomparable. You have indeed thoroughly comprehended this cultivation technique, and there is no mistake about it. But even so, I'm afraid it's because your physique isn't good enough that you're unable to sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Yes, Taoist priest, I understand. At this time, when Lu Yi heard Xiaohua's praise, his eyes lit up. He smiled and said, Taoist priest has already said this at the beginning. This little one has a plan in mind. This lowly one is already fortunate enough to have a glimpse of the immortal cultivation technique. As for whether or not I have the fate to cultivate, this lowly one doesn't care anymore. Yes, it's great that you have such intentions. I'm just afraid that you're too ambitious. Xiaohua nodded and said, Since that's the case, this old man will teach you another cultivation technique. You can try it again. Yes, I'll listen to Taoist priest's instructions. Lu Yi nodded vigorously. After Xiaohua passed on a simple water-type cultivation method to Lu Yi, he once again irresponsibly gave him a few small dates, allowing Lu Yi to comprehend it himself. Xiaohua himself once again exited the carriage, riding on the back of a horse, leisurely and contentedly admiring the scenery outside the main road. Brother Ye, after Xiaohua left, Lu Yi closed his eyes for a long time. After carefully memorizing the cultivation technique, he walked to the front of the carriage and sat down cross-legged. He whispered, You've worked hard these past few days. It's not hard at all. When Yuanya heard this, he didn't turn his head. He shook the reins and stabilized the horse pulling the carriage. He said, Now that you have an opportunity, you must properly grasp it. The immortal is a good person. It's our great fortune to have met him. He won't be able to stay with us for too long. You must cultivate well and strive to have the immortal accept you as his disciple and take you away. It's easier said than done. It's too difficult. Lu Yi sighed. Since I was young, I boasted that I was smart and had a photographic memory. But look at the hundreds of words the immortal gave me. Shu Yuanya, who didn't know much about the ways of the world, was suddenly shocked and hurriedly said, Brother Lu, you can't say this anymore. Only you know it. Yes, I understand. Lu Yi hurriedly smiled. Taoist priest only said that I can't pass it to others. He didn't say that I can't nag. If the immortal says one, you must think too. Yuanya wanted to say something, but looking at Lu Yi, he didn't know how to express it. In short, you know this better than me. It's better not to make the immortal angry. Yes, I will remember. Lu Yi looked at Yuanya, who didn't speak much, and his heart warmed. He handed the spirit dates in his hand to Yuanya and said, This is the date given by the immortal. I haven't eaten it yet. Try it. Okay. Yuanya didn't hesitate. He reached out and took it. He threw it into the air, and was about to use his mouth to catch it. If you don't want to die, then don't eat it like this. Xiaohua's voice drifted over. The thumb-sized spirit jujube stopped in mid-air. Yuanya raised his head and waited foolishly. At this moment, the carriage suddenly sped up. Yuanya's body involuntarily fell down on the carriage. With a pada sound, the spirit jujube fell down and hit Yuanya's nose. A burst of laughter suddenly sounded, like a string of silver bells swaying to the left of Yuanya. A red pony happily ran past Yuanya. Not only was the pony's mane fine and smooth, but there were also strands of light coming from the saddle and other things on the pony's back. There were also traces of red mist coming from where the pony's hooves touched the ground. It was as if the pony didn't touch the ground at all, and it didn't make the slightest sound. Looking at the little red horse, there was a woman dressed in red. Her face was covered with a layer of red veil. Although her figure was graceful, her face couldn't be seen clearly. The laughter came from the woman's veil. As the woman laughed, the little red horse galloped past Yuanya's carriage, and a faint fragrance wafted through the wind. Diawu. Yuanya was originally lying on his back, but when he heard the laughter, it was as if he had seen a ghost. His face suddenly turned pale, and he used all his strength to push his arms back. His entire body flew out of the carriage as he screamed in disbelief. Gitch. Gitch. The silver bells continued to ring, but they were getting further and further away. The little red horse was very handsome. In a short moment, it had already caught up to the front of the Sunhai Trading Company. Diawu Yuanya groaned. Before he even landed, he stepped on the horse pulling the carriage and wanted to chase after Difui. Get out of the way, get out of the way, a rough voice came from behind, followed by the rumbling of horse hooves. The entire avenue was shaking. Everyone looked up and saw a cloud of dust rising from the bridge that they had just stepped off. A group of cavalrymen wearing pitch-black armor and riding pitch-black horses were chasing after them with long spears in their hands. Although this group of soldiers was quite far from the woman in red, everyone, including Xiaohua, thought that this group of soldiers was the woman's bodyguard. The soldiers were in a line of 3, almost occupying the entire road. Under the rough shouts, the workers and bodyguards of the Sunhai Trading Company hurriedly moved the carriages to the side, trying their best to make way for the soldiers. As for Yuanya, he had already landed on the second carriage in front of him. However, the soldiers in front of the group of soldiers had already raised their spears. Hidden behind their helmets, their gazes were like sharp swords as they stared at Yuanya. Yuanya, come down. Xiaohua said indifferently. You won't be able to catch up. But Yuanya stood on the roof of the carriage. His face was filled with an indescribable excitement and reluctance. In the distance, at the end of the road, the woman's figure was like a burning cloud. Yuanya knew that he really wouldn't be able to catch up. Hurry up and come down. Seeing the dozens of soldiers in black armor turn their heads to look at Yuanya, the spears in their hands were raised. If Yuanya made any strange movements, these spears would not hesitate to stab at him. Xiao Jian hurriedly shouted, I don't know which country's black armor army this is. Yes, Yuanya looked into the distance with some unwillingness, before looking to the left and right. Only then did he jump down from the carriage. Rumble, the black armor army quickly galloped past under everyone's gaze. There were more than 100 of them, and their movements were uniform. Even the hooves of the 100 black horses were almost the same. When the black armor army was far away, the workers of the Sunhai Trading Company urged the carriages to move again. The dozens of carriages slowly moved again, leaving Yuanya standing on the side of the road in a daze as he lightly bit his lips. Xiao Jian asked curiously, This is the Diawu you were talking about? She doesn't seem to know you. She was only around 3 years old at that time. How did she know me? Yuanya suddenly understood something and smiled bitterly. Also, I gave her the name Diawu. She might not know it herself. What? Xiao Jian's eyes widened, and he almost laughed out loud. The woman you yearned for day and night, was actually with you when you were 3 years old? How could she possibly know you? You aren't joking with your master, right? No. Yuanya's emotions surged and he lost his usual calmness. Have you only seen her once? Also, you couldn't have seen her real appearance just now. Xiaohua was also curious and asked softly, How many years has it been? The Diawu of 3 years old, and the Diawu now. How could they be the same? How could you recognize her? All right, Immortal Elder knows. Yuanya's face finally revealed a trace of blood as he proudly said, When I heard her laughter, I knew it was her. Also, whether Immortal Elder believes it or not, I can smell Diawu's scent. Chapter 32-39. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat as he recalled the first time he saw Fairy Hongxia. Didn't the red mole at the corner of Fairy Hongxia's mouth give him a familiar feeling? Xiaohua nodded slightly. Diawu is pretty good looking, Xiaohua said softly as he looked at Yuanya's dazed expression. Furthermore, this old man has already left a mark on her body. As long as it's within 100 li, this old man will definitely be able to detect it. Really? Yuanya's eyes were filled with ecstasy as he clenched his fists tightly. His arms were trembling. He Xiaohua laughed but did not reply. Ha ha ha. Yuanya jumped up and somersaulted a few times in the air before landing on the ground. He was clearly extremely happy. Looking at Yuanya's appearance, Xiaohua rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. Damn it, it's good to be young. No, this old man can't take advantage of his seniority in the future. There's no reason for me to be so lifeless. It's really boring. Yes, wasn't Xiaohua the same as he was in the past? However, after coming out of seclusion for 100 years, he felt that he was old for no reason. He kept calling himself this old man. It really felt like he was past his prime. This Xiao is just over 200 years old. If I reach nascent soul, my lifespan can reach 2,000 years. Compared to an ordinary person, I'm only around 10 years old. Damn it, this Xiao is still underage. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. Senior? Xiao Jian looked at Xiaohua strangely. This senior had beaten Xiaohua from the peak to the bottom of the valley in an instant. It's nothing. Xiaohua's face immediately became as cold as ice. Then he raised his eyebrows and unhappily looked towards the horizon 100 zhang away. There were a few pigeon-like birds that were quickly flying past. Xiaohua snorted coldly. Those birds suddenly fell down and fainted when they landed on the mountain rocks. As the saying goes, snakes and rats are in the same nest. It's really like that. Xiaohua's gaze turned and looked at the tea shed in the distance. Brother Ye seeing Yuanya happily land on the carriage, Louis was also happy for him. He carefully handed the spirit jujube that had fallen on the carriage to him. You're really amazing. You've already decided on a marriage at the age of 3. I really envy you. Slap. Yuanya raised his hand and slapped the back of Lu Yi's head. He scolded. How am I as despicable as you think? I was only 7 or 8 years old at that time. Tell me, what is going on? Just as Yuanya finished speaking, another person appeared out of thin air. That person's voice was extremely wretched. Old Yuanya was furious. Just as he was about to scold him, he saw who it was and immediately smiled apologetically. Immortal elder you. Why are you here? Tell me, Xiaohua said with a smile. I've heard you play the sun in the River Tide Temple. At that time, I didn't see Diawu, but now, this old man knows what Diawu looks like. If you don't tell me. Yuanya helplessly looked at Xiaohua's disrespectful appearance. He then looked at Xiao Jian, who was riding a horse and pretending not to care. However, his ears were already perked up. Yuanya could only drive the carriage and tell the story of what happened. Yuanya had lived in the mystic Jade Dark Forest since he was young. He danced with the wild wolves in the forest. When he was 5 years old, the black wolf that raised him was bitten and seriously injured when it was fighting for territory with another wolf. The night the black wolf died, Yuanya took the black wolf's corpse into the depths of the wolf valley. He wanted to bury the black wolf. However, on that full moon night, Yuanya heard the faint cry of a baby. This was the first time Yuanya had seen a human baby. It was the first time he had seen a human like himself. Therefore, after burying the black wolf's corpse, he brought the baby back to the wolf's den. However, the arrival of the baby attracted the attention of the pack of wolves. Perhaps because they no longer had the black wolf's protection, the pack of wolves wanted to chase Yuanya away. Thus, a fight broke out between Yuanya and the pack of wolves again. The 5-year-old Yuanya was naturally no match for the pack of wolves. After being bitten and covered in cuts and bruises, he carried the baby, whose left arm was also injured, out of the wolf's den. At that time, the baby should have just been born. It cried loudly and had a high fever after being attacked by the pack of wolves. Yuanya naturally did not understand this. He only thought that the baby was hungry, so he caught rabbits and roasted them for the baby to eat. How could a newborn baby eat these things? Just as Yuanya was helpless and the baby was on the verge of death, a group of colorful butterflies fluttered their enchanting wings in the morning light and flew past Yuanya and the baby. The baby seemed to be attracted by the colorful butterflies. Perhaps it had run out of strength and stopped crying hysterically. This made Yuanya very happy. Ignoring the cuts and bruises all over his body, he carried the baby and followed the butterflies to the side of a lake. At the side of the lake, there was a doe that had just given birth. It was mournfully licking the dead baby. It was in so much pain that it wished to die. Looking at the lifeless baby and the milk dripping from the doe's mouth, Yuanya suddenly understood something. He quickly caught the doe and used its milk to feed the baby. After eating its fill, the baby fell asleep and slept for half a day. After half a day, it cried loudly and ate the milk again. After a few days like this, the baby's fever subsided and the wounds on its left arm healed. However, the wolfsbane had left a long scar on the baby's arm. Other than a small blanket and a sun, the baby had nothing else. Yuanya himself did not have a name, but he gave the baby the name Diawu. Just like this, Yuanya, Diawu, and the doe that had lost its baby lived by the side of the butterfly pond. Diawu gradually grew up, from swaddling clothes to learning to walk, and then to babbling. They lived there for 3 years. During these 3 years, Yuanya would go hunting during the day and Diawu would stay with the doe. At night, Yuanya would accompany Diawu and play the sun for her. Every time he played the sun, Diawu would obediently lie in Yuanya's arms and look at him with sparkling eyes that were like the stars in the sky. These happy days lasted until one day. Yuanya remembered it very clearly. It was a stormy day. Yuanya woke up early to hunt as usual, but before he could catch any prey, he suddenly felt uneasy. It was as if they had a telepathic connection. Yuanya hurriedly ran back to Butterfly Lake. As expected, the side of Butterfly Lake was covered in blood. The doe had been killed on the ground, and there were light footprints beside it. Yuanya angrily followed the footprints out of Butterfly Lake. Unfortunately, under the heavy rain, Yuanya quickly lost track of the enemy. Helpless, Yuanya left Butterfly Lake and searched the entire Mystic Jade Dark Forest to find Diawu. Unfortunately, Yuanya had underestimated the Mystic Jade Dark Forest. He had spent 5 years and had not even explored half of the forest. The remaining areas were filled with fierce beasts that Yuanya could not deal with. Yuanya had gathered his courage and tried to deal with a fierce beast that he thought he could handle. However, he was heavily injured by the fierce beast and was captured by a hunter who had entered the Mystic Jade Dark Forest. After that, Yuanya was taken out of the Mystic Jade Dark Forest and sold to the arena. Speaking of the arena, Yuanya seemed to be touched by something sad. His face revealed a sorrowful expression as he raised his hand and placed the spirit jujube in his mouth. Just as he was about to fiercely chew on it to relieve the dryness in his mouth, Xiaohua's interested voice sounded out again. Teheke. What an unforgettable love between childhood sweethearts. This old man advises you to eat it bit by bit. Otherwise, you will never see your Diawu again. Xiaohua's words were naturally not as fast as Yuanya's actions. However, before Yuanya heard Xiaohua's words, he seemed to have lost all his strength. No matter how hard he tried, he could not bite down. Only after Xiaohua finished speaking did he regain consciousness. Yuanya laughed embarrassedly and lightly bit down on a piece of spirit jujube. In an instant, his mouth was filled with a sweet fragrance. This sweet fragrance was something that Yuanya, who had lived in the forest since young, had never tasted before. When he greedily chewed up the spirit jujube and swallowed it into his stomach, an indescribable warmth rushed into his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. A comfortable feeling spread through his limbs and bones. Yuanya could not help but moan. He licked his lips, wanting to take another bite. However, he was extremely reluctant. Seeing that Yuanya was about to hide the spirit jujube in his bosom like a meat bun, Xiaohua laughed. No need to be so stingy. This old man has a lot of these things. If you want to eat some, you can ask this old man anytime. As he spoke, he took out 2 more spirit jujubes and threw them to Yuanya. Yuanya stretched out his hands and very nimbly caught them, immediately keeping them in his bosom. Ai, how pitiful! Xiaohua stood up and stood on the carriage. He sighed. Yuanya, you and Diawu. Perhaps it was the enmity from your previous life. If you don't owe her, then she owes you. However, the heavens threw the 2 of you together at such a young age. Tiske now. You know her, but how could she know you? Moreover, she is now a descendant of some royal family. What about you? Such unrealistic thoughts should be put aside for now. At this point, Xiaohua suddenly froze. He looked at Lu Yi, who was eating a spirit jujube with his eyes closed. Although Yuanya and Diawu's story sounded a little absurd, wasn't it similar to Lu Yi and Xiaoyun's experience? One was a wild boy who grew up in the forest, the other was a descendant of a royal family. One was a shrew in the marketplace, the other was a princess of the water tribe. Immortal Elder Yuanya's face was slightly red. He smiled and said, "You're thinking too much. Diawu is a family member to this junior. Moreover, she is his first family member. This junior is very concerned about her life and death. Since she is living well, this junior can rest assured. Whether she knows this junior or not, whether she sees this junior or not, it doesn't matter." AI, what an ill-fated relationship. Not far away, Xiao Jian's ears drooped. He sighed and did not say anything else, as if he was warning Yuanya. Taoist elder. Just as Xiao Hua was about to say something, Louis suddenly opened his eyes in surprise and shouted, This junior knows what spiritual energy is." Chapter 3240. A strange expression appeared on Xiao Hua's face. He didn't dare to give Lu Yi too many spirit fruits and only gave him the lowest grade spirit jujube. Firstly, it was to let him eat until he was full. Secondly, it was to let him experience the spiritual items of Taoism. Xiao Hua didn't place too much hope on the spirit jujube. However, Xiao Hua still underestimated the spirit jujube in his space, and also underestimated Lu Yi's aptitude. Just this one spirit jujube was enough for Lu Yi to grasp the spirit jujube as a small foot. "And you should first experience it and don't do anything else." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and instructed, "My Taoism's divine abilities all rely on the spirit jujube of heaven and earth. If you can't experience the spirit jujube of heaven and earth, just relying on these spirit fruits, it's impossible for you to step onto the path of Tao." Yes, this little one understands. Lu Yi was very happy. He took another bite of the spirit jujube and closed his eyes to experience it. Looking at Lu Yi's excited appearance, Xiao Hua inwardly sighed. Lu Yi's aptitude was indeed not bad. Not only was he able to comprehend a qi refining cultivation method that he had never cultivated before, he was also able to keenly sense the faint spiritual energy within the spirit jujube. This was absolutely impossible for the previous Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was even more clear that if Lu Yi couldn't sense the spirit jujube of heaven and earth, it would be impossible for him to step onto the threshold of cultivation. Without the spirit jujube of heaven and earth, all of Taoism's cultivation was just a castle in the air. After entering Jiasa country, other than encountering the black armored army led by Diawu at the bridge, there were no other unforeseen events. The caravan of Sun Hai Trading Company moved forward in an extremely orderly manner. When night came, someone led them to a spacious mountain ridge to rest. The caravan was prepared. Not long after, Qi Jin led two people and brought some food to Xiao Hua and the others. What made Xiao Jian depressed was that other than his own stomach being hungry, Lu Yi and Yuanya didn't feel hungry or thirsty at all. They didn't even drink a mouthful of water. Compared to Xiao Jian's depression, Qi Jin was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Otherworldly. What does this mean? This means that the immortal in front of me is really an immortal. As for the Taoist priest who took his silver coins, he was just like him, a layman. After Qi Jin left, Xiao Jian gnawed on a stewed pig trotter. Although the pig trotter was very fragrant, Xiao Jian's eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as he looked at Xiao Hua, who was cultivating with his eyes closed. His mouth was tasteless. Xiao Hua ignored him and seemed to have fallen asleep. After the meal, a bonfire was lit in the middle of the group of carriages. The escorts and some of the workers from the trading companies took out food and wine, and even gambling equipment. They started to make a ruckus. Seeing this lively scene, the eyes of Xiao Jian, who had been silent all this time and felt somewhat out of place with Xiao Hua, suddenly lit up. He glanced at Xiao Hua from the corner of his eyes, and quietly walked over. However, he had only taken a few steps when Yuanya hurriedly got up and followed him out. When they reached the shadow of a carriage, Yuanya hurriedly caught up with Xiao Jian and said in a low voice, "Master, for you." "What?" Xiao Jian was stunned. When he saw Yuanya carefully take out a spirit jujube wrapped in an oil bag from his bosom, his face turned cold. "Pa." He slapped the oil bag away and said, "This old man doesn't need the pity of others. This old man has eaten a lot of these spirit fruits in the past. After he finished speaking, he ignored Yuanya and quickly walked away. The embers of the bonfire gradually extinguished in the night wind. Xiao Jian happily walked back while humming a tune. He lay down near the carriage and quickly fell asleep. In the night, Xiaohua opened his eyes and indifferently swept a glance at everything that was somewhat messy. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of ridicule. The Taoist's divine sense was actually used by Xiao Jian in gambling. I'm afraid that if the Tao sovereign above the ninth heaven knew, he would fly down in anger to punish Xiao Jian, right? On the second and third days, they didn't encounter the bandits that Qi Jin was worried about. Everything was normal. Moreover, there were more carriages on the road. Not only were there bodyguards from the Sunhai Trading Company, there were also bodyguards from other trading companies. It seemed that even if bandits came out, there was no need for Xiaohua and the others to make a move. These bodyguards could handle it. Qi Jin and the other managers of the trading company were happy, but on the other hand, Xiao Jian couldn't be happy. His divine sense was originally weak. On the first day it was exhausted. This divine sense won him a lot of money. However, on the second and third day, there were more bodyguards participating in the gambling. Xiao Jian no longer had any means to cheat. He didn't know if it was because of bad luck or other reasons, but Xiao Jian lost again and again. At the beginning, Xiao Jian wanted to withdraw in time. Unfortunately, he won too much on the first day. How could the bodyguards who lost money let him go? After he lost all the money he had won in the past to others, even with Qi Jin's reminder, the red-eyed Xiao Jian simply couldn't listen. He even said that he would get angry with anyone who didn't allow him to gamble. This kind of gambling behavior was the favorite of all gamblers. The gambling continued until dawn. Under the morning light, Xiao Jian walked to the front of the carriage, somewhat tired. In the distant shadows, a group of bodyguards and some shop assistants who participated in the gambling secretly poked their heads out. They were afraid of the otherworldly Xiaohua, and even more afraid of Yuanya, who was more ferocious than a beast. However, they couldn't let go of the vitality stones that Xiao Jian lost to them. Losing a game wasn't scary. What was scary was, the more you bet, the more you lose, and the more you lose, the more you gamble. On the third night, no one came to wake Xiao Jian up. However, as he looked at the bustling scene around the bonfire and heard the bets being placed, Xiao Jian felt as if there was a pair of small hands clutching at his heart, making it impossible for him to fall asleep and calm his heart. Finally, Xiao Jian resolutely walked to the side of the bonfire. Looking at Xiao Jian's long shadow in the bonfire, Xiaohua seemed to have understood something. Xiaohua felt that he understood, but in reality, what he understood was still too little. When the moon was high in the sky, Xiao Jian came back and took away the last portion of the vitality stones. However, Xiao Jian didn't come back to rest. He followed his own vitality stones to the bonfire. This time, Xiao Jian didn't stay for long. Soon, the bonfire was abnormally noisy. Xiao Jian staggered back. Although the darkness of the night was a very good layer of protection, Xiaohua could clearly see that Xiao Jian's face was bruised and swollen. When Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, he already understood everything. Xiao Jian actually began to cheat after losing all his primeval stones. If you want to cheat, you can cheat, but you were discovered by others. If it wasn't for Xiaohua and Yuanya behind Xiao Jian, this guy would have been beaten to a pulp by a group of bodyguards. Perhaps one could see true feelings in difficult days, but one's true nature would never be seen. Perhaps only when one was comfortable and relaxed could one see one's true nature. How many loving couples could help each other when they were in poverty, but when they were rich, they couldn't help each other. This was what people often said, being able to share hardships but not happiness. When Xiao Jian didn't have money, he could bring Yuanyu along. No matter if it was divination or running a training hall, he was able to keep his loneliness. However, when he was comfortable and his life was secure, the bad side in his heart immediately revealed itself. No matter how much he pretended, it couldn't hide it. The morning wind blew, blowing away the darkness of the night. Everyone stood up in high spirits, their faces filled with smiles as they faced a new day. That's right, how could a few boxes full of vitality stones be compared to ordinary gold and silver? But it was Xiao Jian who lost it all. Everyone who received vitality stones was abnormally happy. This was something that they couldn't even dream of. Even if they went home now, in this lifetime, no several lifetimes, they wouldn't be short of money. This world was like this, there was only so much happiness. If you were happy, others wouldn't be happy. If you weren't happy, others would take away your happiness. Xiao Jian was like this. Others completely robbed him of his happiness, leaving him with only bitterness. Other than frowning, he was listless. Yesterday at dusk, he still had wealth comparable to a rich man. Today at dawn he had become a pauper, with nothing left. However, contrary to the expectations of Xiao Hua, who was coldly watching from the side, after the carriages had left for half an hour, the dejection on Xiao Jian's face had already disappeared. It was as if he didn't go to the bonfire gambling house, and even more so, as if he didn't receive any vitality stones at all. Hee, how interesting. Xiao Hua looked at Xiao Jian, who was in a good mood. He really didn't understand. He was very clear about the value of those spirit stones. If he lost those spirit stones, Xiao Hua would definitely not forgive himself, and would definitely be heartbroken. Oh, there are interesting things every year, but it seems like there are a lot of them this year. Xiao Hua's gaze had just moved away from Xiao Jian, and immediately looked at a few tall mountains in the distance. Those tall mountains surrounded the main road, and it was unknown when the main road under their feet started to narrow. The weeds on the side of the road were also lush. It was as if it was a barren place. Perhaps the huge gambling house from before made these escorts' sense of smell become dull. Only when they saw the tall mountains did they become alert, and immediately sent a few escorts to rush into the mountains to investigate. Including the carriages that joined the carriages later, there were already dozens of carriages in the Sunhai Trading Company. There were also close to 40 escorts from different escort companies. They waited for a moment, but still didn't see any signal, and couldn't help but feel anxious. At this moment, Qi Jin came again. The pitiful Qi Jin was now knocked out by Xiao Jian's vitality stones. Those were immortal stones. Qi Jin, who had traveled extensively, had long heard of it. His own home also had a lot of immortal stones, but seeing Xiao Jian lose more immortal stones than he had collected in his lifetime, he really didn't dare to put Xiao Jian, who had taken his money, together with the current Xiao Jian. He had already regarded Xiao Jian as an otherworldly expert. Even though this expert had been beaten up by many escorts, he only regarded this otherworldly expert as someone who was playing in the mortal world. Seeing Xiao Jian impatiently waving his hand, and then looking at Xiao Hua, who was sitting cross-legged on a horse with his eyes closed, Qi Jin confidently returned to the carriages. At this moment, the escorts who entered the mountains also sent a signal that it was safe. Chapter 32-41. Dozens of carriages started moving again. Although the escorts were nervous, they still urged their horses forward. This was the only way to enter the capital of the Jiasa kingdom. Beyond these mountains was a sprawling forest filled with wild beasts. There was no way to go. The only thing they prayed for was that the mountain bandits would not come down the mountain to rob them. They were either drunk, had robbed enough, or had seen that there were enough escorts in their carriages. Unfortunately, these escorts' luck had already been used up a few days ago when they gambled with Xiao Jian. They had only been on the mountain path for about 2 hours when their extreme joy turned to sorrow. After a series of loud gongs, hundreds of bandits dressed in different outfits swarmed out from the side of the mountain ridge where the carriages were located, surrounding the carriages like dumplings. Even if the group of escorts wanted to escape, there was no way for them to do so. Ha ha ha! While everyone's expression changed, Xiao Jian was covering his mouth and laughing. That's right, he had nothing on him now. His primordial stones had long been used up. He was the only one who wasn't afraid of the mountain bandits. Nay, a loud roar came from the front left of the carriages. A yellow horse turned out from the mountain ridge. The man on the horse was 20 feet tall. He held a long saber in his hand and shouted, "This road is open by me then." There was another loud roar that was even louder than before. A bull-like mount came out from the back of the carriage. There was also a valiant person sitting on it, and he shouted with a ferocious face, "This tree was planted by me." Soon after, the man stopped talking again. Only some of the bandits on the left were beating their gongs with all their might. When the sound of the gongs faded away, 2 more burly bandits appeared from the front and the right of the caravan. They shouted, "If you want to pass through here, you have to pay the toll." That was the best song of all time. Strange, what's going on? Xiaohua was puzzled. He looked around and asked in a low voice. Daoist the quick-witted Lu Yi had already opened his eyes. He wasn't nervous at all. He smiled and said, "These 4 mountain bandits belong to 4 different strongholds." They said 4 sentences at the same time, which means that the 4 of them will attack together today. I think they found out about the bet a few days ago and attracted the attention of the 4 strongholds at the same time. Normally, they would take turns and only come out when it's the turn of the village. Well, that's the only way Xiaohua came to a realization. He had clearly killed all the birds that were sending messages, and he hadn't seen any suspicious birds flying over these past few days. How could these bandits know the exact amount of treasures in these carriages? Perhaps this was the only explanation. However, what Xiaohua didn't know was that although he was cautious, he still made a mistake. Among the information that the birds brought, in addition to the information about the trading company, there was also information about Xiaohua and the others' Daoist identities, and also a warning to the bandits not to make a move. However, since Xiaohua had killed these birds, the mountain bandits naturally wouldn't be able to find out about the warning. Naturally, they would come out to intercept him, especially with the existence of Xiao Jian, the Taoist master. Even if these bandits knew about this, would they let go of this great opportunity to make a fortune? Since Louis knew about it, the other escorts would also know about it. Some of the escorts had already urged their horses forward to collude with the bandits. Xiaohua put away his doubts and released his divine sense. He watched with interest as the righteous and evil sides discussed over there. This familiar scene made him believe even more firmly that his original home was in the hidden immortal continent. He was being chased by 2 nascent soul experts, but unexpectedly, he profited from a disaster and returned to his homeland. The collusion only lasted for a short moment before both sides broke down. It wasn't that the bandits wanted too much, it was that the escorts and the trading company wanted to give too little. Immediately, the sounds of fighting rang out. Under the escort of the escorts, the workers of the carriages risked their lives to break out of the encirclement. The bandits from all directions also raised their weapons and charged forward. When both sides came into contact, casualties immediately appeared. Although there were many bandits, the majority of them weren't skilled in martial arts. Although there were few escorts, they were all experts. Most of the miserable screams came from the mouths of the bandits. The escorts were rarely injured. Just like this, the carriages once again charged forward for a distance of several dozen zhang. Xiaohua and the others were also very depressed. At first, Yuanya followed behind the carriages. Later, the bandits chased from behind. When Yuanya prepared to meet the enemy, those bandits actually let go of the worn-out carriages in the carriages. They didn't even look at Xiaohua and the others. They directly passed by and challenged the escorts guarding the carriages. This Xiaohua looked at these ant-like bandits and didn't know how to deal with them. He was a nascent soul cultivator. Although he could casually attack, and these several hundred bandits wouldn't be able to leave their lives behind, could he do it? Could he make the lightning from the 9 heavens fall on the heads of these bandits, who didn't have any magic power? Even if these bandits' steel blades were once stained with blood. Immortal Elder! Immortal Elder in the distance, a faint shout sounded. When it entered Xiaohua's ears, it was Qi Jin's cry for help. Xiaohua glanced at Xiao Jian, who seemed to be rejoicing in other people's misfortune, and didn't seem to have any reaction to this cry for help. Xiaohua instructed, "Yuanya, go help Elder Qi." Yes, Yuanya had long wanted to move. Now that he heard Xiaohua, he immediately jumped up from the carriage. "Take the weapon." Xiaohua waved his hand and threw the magic wand to Yuanya. With the magic wand in his hand, Yuanya was like a tiger with wings. He leaped into the air among the bandits. Every shadow of the wand would break the bones of the bandits. He was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. He was invincible and was about to reach Qi Jin. You brat! At this time on the mountain ridge to the right of the carriage, a fat monk holding a crescent moon spade roared. He urged his donkey-like mount to rush down the mountain ridge. The monk's chest was bare. His 2-inch-long black hair danced in the mountain wind. When he waved the crescent moon spade, it made a woo-woo sound like a ghost's cry. The donkey was even more strange. When it wagged its tail, it was actually twice as fast as a horse. It rushed down the mountain ridge as if it was flat ground. In a few breaths, it had already arrived in front of Yuanya. Have a taste of my staff. The fat monk roared again. With a woo sound, the crescent moon spade smashed down with earth-shattering force. Clang! Yuanya did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly waved his magic wand to meet the attack. With a deafening sound, the fat monk and the donkey were stopped and almost moved back half a foot. Yuanya was shaken off the mountain path. His whole body somersaulted a few times in the air, but he could not dissipate the huge force. After landing on the ground, he was pushed back several feet before he could stabilize himself. Looking at the area between Yuanya's thumb and index finger, there was a faint trace of blood. The area between his thumb and index finger was actually split by this attack. Awesome! Yuanya's eyes flashed with a fanatical expression. His legs moved, and with a trembling hand, he waved the magic wand and rushed toward the fat monk. Ha ha ha! The fat monk also laughed and urged the donkey to fight with Yuanya. The fat monk was also very good. The crescent moon spade flew up and down. It was a match for Yuanya. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, there was no clear winner. However, Xiaohua could see that Yuanya did not have many moves, but each of his moves was dangerous, forcing the fat monk to be tired. Coupled with the weight of the magic wand, Yuanya gradually gained the upper hand. Although the fat monk's moves were very tight, his strength was slightly inferior to Yuanya's. He also did not have Yuanya's fearless fierceness. Soon he was at a disadvantage. He might be fine for now, but after a long time he would definitely be defeated. Haha, fake monk. You also have a day like this. The fierce man who had been standing at the back of the caravan on his bull-like mount laughed loudly. He raised the steel spear in his hand and shouted, "Second brother G, if you don't help me, that cheap sister of yours will be a widow." The fat monk was finally able to catch his breath under the shadow of Yuanya's staff and shouted loudly. Just as the fat monk finished speaking, woo! The sound of a staff whistling interrupted the fat monk's shout. "This old man is coming!" The fierce man called Second Brother G urged the old bull under him. The bull's hooves actually emitted a faint smoke, and it rushed toward Yuanya. Xiaohua sneered. Just as he was about to make a move, he heard the sound of hurried horse hooves in the distance. A clear and slightly childish voice sounded. "Bold mountain bandit, you actually dare to do such a wicked thing in broad daylight. Eat my sword." Not only was Xiaohua shocked, even Second Brother Ji, who was about to attack Yuanya, turned around to look. Dozens of feet away, there was a large green horse. On the horse, there was a scholar who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. This scholar was wearing a green scholar's robe. His thin lips were tightly shut, and he held a 3-foot-long green sword in his hand. Under his sword-like eyebrows, his bright eyes flashed with hatred. Although the green horse's back was as bumpy as waves, the scholar stood steadily on the horse's back. When he got a little closer, the scholar's figure jumped from the horse's back. Using the horse's momentum, he rushed into the air and pierced toward Second Brother Ji, like a wild goose. "Still wet behind the ears, little brat. You don't even dare to tell me your name, and you actually dare to be so serious with your grandfather." Second Brother Ji saw that the sword light was like a star, sweeping through the air and piercing toward him. He couldn't help but sneer. Pointing his spear in the air, he roared and turned around to meet the scholar flying toward him. Clang, clang, clang! The scholar's robe fluttered in the air. The sword light was like a floating frost, and the steel spear was like a horned plum blossom in the flying frost. The moment the scholar and the bandit met face to face, they immediately exchanged several moves. The scholar's figure was forced to dodge in the air by the bandit. After borrowing the force of the attack several times, he finally had no choice but to land on the side of the mountain ridge. Where did this scholar come from? Second Brother Ji seemed to be somewhat afraid of this scholar. He shook the steel spear in his hand and coldly said, "Which academy are you from? You have no business here." so you should leave early. You are not my opponent. Ha ha ha. In broad daylight. When is there a place in the hidden immortal continent where a thief can teach a scholar a lesson? The scholar waved his green sword and a green light flashed. He coldly looked at second brother Ji and loudly said, I am not willing to tell you my name because you thieves don't deserve to hear my name. If you hear my name, it will be an insult to me for no reason. Chapter 32-42. Haha, ignorant child. Second brother Ji laughs again, his eyes flashing with an ominous glint. Don't you think about it, I and the others have been here for several years. How many people more powerful than you have yet to make a move? How could a child like you know about this? I don't know about the actions of others. I only know that the people of the world care about the world's affairs. We wanderers naturally have to care about the world's injustice. Get rid of the world's evil deeds. The scholar is not afraid at all. He coldly snorts and says righteously, I boast that I am not good at learning, but I read books, practice etiquette, cultivate righteousness, and hold a 3-foot-long sword. So I should move forward and get rid of the world's evil deeds. Although I can't do what the ancient proverb says, but, if a bandit soldier commits an evil deed, I will kill him. If a bandit general commits an evil deed, I will also kill him. If we can't get rid of evil, what joy do we have in life? Laughing proudly in the world, getting rid of the universe, what fear do we have in death? Good. Xiaohua suddenly stood up from the carriage. This scholar's few words had instantly enlightened Xiaohua. His previous hesitation had all disappeared. He almost wanted to clap his hands and exclaim in admiration. Since you want to die, I will let you die. Killing a nameless scholar like you who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I don't believe that the academy can find my mountain stronghold. Second brother Ji is furious. A man of character will not change his name. I am the wanderer Yu Zhongquan. The scholar's eyes flash with determination. He knows that this battle points to disaster, so he clenches his teeth and says word by word. When the scholar's name enters his ears, Xiaohua's figure sways, and he almost falls down from the carriage. Yu Zhongquan? Xiaohua is dumbfounded, a bitter face, and a desolate call immediately flashes in his mind. Yu Zhongquan, wanderer, where are you? This is the end of the tragic love story of Little Cabbage in front of Tianmen Mountain, on the bank of the cold river, and also the last words of the malicious spirit Huang Yi before he fell into the cycle of reincarnation. Xiaohua didn't expect that this story would actually appear in the hidden immortal continent. This Yu Zhongquan is it that Yu Zhongquan? Xiaohua looked in that direction, inwardly pondering. Is it the ranger Yu Zhongquan that Huang Yi mentioned? See no indecent, hear no indecent, speak no indecent, move no indecent? However, since his name is Yu Zhongquan and he is a ranger, how can I just stand by and watch? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes as the green light between his brows flourished. Ripples instantly appeared in the air as tens of thousands of lightning bolts began to move. But just as Xiaohua was about to use the thunderclap lightning flash technique, his heart stirred. With a wave of his hand, a centipede that was several feet long and as thick as a fist flew out from the void. Right now the Herculean centipede was completely different from before. On the black shell, there were some strange runes. These runes flashed with a faint black and gold light as the God Power centipede flew. The God Power centipede didn't have many legs before, but now they were even longer. Thick black smoke was coming out of each leg. The smoke supported the God Power centipede as it floated in the air. Looking at the two most eye-catching sword-like antennae on its head, the cold light had long disappeared. At the sharp ends of the antennae, curved runes spread all over the antennae and landed on the top of the Herculean centipede's head. At that place, a faint golden rune formed into a strange rune that looked like a tadpole. Go Xiaohua looked at the Herculean centipede and indifferently waved his hand. He wasn't afraid that the Herculean centipede wouldn't understand his meaning. Sure enough, as Xiaohua waved his hand, a gust of wind blew as the Herculean centipede urged the black smoke to charge at second brother Ji. Second brother Ji was also very powerful. He originally wanted to use his steel spear to kill Yu Zhongquan, but when he heard the wind, He immediately turned around. Seeing the Herculean centipede in the black cloud, he frowned and patted Yellow Ox. He pointed his steel spear at the sky and shouted, "Which immortal friend from the black cloud ridge is here?" Unfortunately, the Herculean centipede didn't talk to him at all. The black cloud was activated, and the air within a few feet was condensed into a beam. As the Herculean centipede attacked Second Brother G, Second Brother G felt like he was suffocating. Second Brother G was shocked. He tried his best to use his steel spear to stab the Herculean centipede crack. The steel spear touched the centipede's feeler. The tip of the spear slid slightly, and was unable to exert any force. Moreover, an inhuman force came from the shaft of the spear, causing the spear to be sent flying. Second Brother G was scared witless. He immediately wanted to retreat. However, before he could think of a second idea, he saw another black smoke streaking across the sky. The Herculean centipede's antennae easily split Second Brother G and his mount in half. A gust of blood instantly rushed into the air. Seeing Second Brother G abandon him to deal with the Herculean centipede, Yu Zhongquan was a bit embarrassed and angry. However, before he could fly forward again, Second Brother G, who was extremely powerful in his eyes, was killed by the Herculean centipede in a flash. Yu Zhongquan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Immediately after, a cold thing swept past his body, making Yu Zhongquan's hair stand on end. He immediately raised his Qingfeng sword and prepared to be on guard. However, before he could raise his Qingfeng sword, the Herculean centipede actually flew up again. It rode the black cloud and rushed in another direction. It seemed that its target was another bandit general. "Who is this?" Yu Zhongquan let out a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to look around, a young man who wasn't much older than him suddenly appeared in front of him. He was so scared that he almost screamed. This young man stood in front of Yu Zhongquan and didn't say anything. He only looked at Yu Zhongquan from head to toe. Under his curious gaze, he almost stretched out his hand and tore Yu Zhongquan apart to take a look. Sensing this malicious gaze, the goosebumps that had just appeared on Yu Zhongquan's skin again. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and raised the Qingfeng sword. As if to boost his courage, he anxiously asked, Who are you?" This person was naturally Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked at Yu Zhongquan with a smile, as if he was looking at something very interesting. When he heard Yu Zhongquan's question, he smiled and said, "Don't ask this Xiao first. This Xiao will ask you, you are Yu Zhongquan. How old are you? Where do you live? Are you married? Do you have a wife named Huangyi? Where did you come from and where do you want to go?" Yu Zhongquan was stupefied. He looked at Xiao Hua with extreme disbelief. He was simply drowned by Xiao Hua's questions. After a while, he finally reacted and said in a flustered and exasperated manner, Is your brain damaged?" As he spoke, Yu Zhongquan walked past Xiao Hua in a few steps. He wanted to rush over and kill the mountain bandit, but strangely, Xiao Hua smiled and appeared in front of Yu Zhongquan like a ghost. He said with a smile, "Yu Zhongquan, if this Xiao's brain is damaged, then I'm afraid there isn't anyone in this world with a good brain. How about this? This Xiao sees that you are a talented person and wants to matchmake you. Tell me, what kind of girl do you like? How about this Xiao introduce a little cabbage to you?" Get out of the way." Yu Zhongquan's face was completely red. He pointed his Qingfeng sword at Xiao Hua's nose and said, "This one knows that you are not a mountain bandit, so this one will not sacrifice you to my sword. But if you continue to slander this one and continue to nag like this, don't blame this one for being impolite. You really don't know what's good for you." Xiao Hua shrugged and retreated a few steps. He said helplessly, "This Xiao is the moon elder of the heavens. I fell into the mortal world and wanted to matchmake you a 10,000-year red string. If you are the moon elder, then this one is the sword immortal." Yu Zhongquan unhappily walked a few steps forward. As he spoke, his Qingfeng sword danced and rushed towards a mountain bandit. "Go wherever it's cool." All right. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "The sky is cool. This Xiao will go to the sky and stay there." As he spoke, Xiao Hua activated his flying talisman and flew into the air. He sat there with interest. You can go wherever you want. What does it have to do with this one? Who would have thought that Yu Zhongquan would completely ignore him? His Qingfeng sword lifted the bandit's padao and stabbed towards the bandit's throat. The bandit's padao flashed. He originally wanted to defend and counterattack, but suddenly, panic flashed across the bandit's face. He actually did not dare to fight against Yu Zhongquan's Qingfeng sword, and wanted to dodge. This bandit's underling was originally not Yu Zhongquan's opponent. If he fought with his life on the line, he might have been able to escape with his life. But now that he was so afraid, he only wanted to dodge. Naturally, after a few moves, his throat was stabbed by Yu Zhongquan, and he died on the ground. Yu Zhongquan sneered. He ignored the blood on the tip of his sword and the bandit's eyes that were still open on the ground. He jumped up again and chased after another bandit. However, soon after, Yu Zhongquan was extremely puzzled as he discovered that he was really invincible. Not only did the sword light hit him, all the underlings were scared witless. Even before he could catch up, those bandits who saw his shadow also fled. This made him really excited. With righteousness in the chest, evil ghosts will be easily defeated. With righteousness in mind, one will fight 100 battles without hesitation. Yu Zhongquan could not help but roar towards the sky. He shouted with extreme joy, "Come, come, come, who dares to fight 300 rounds with me?" At this moment, Yu Zhongquan had already reached the side of the carriages. The originally terrified shop assistant's face was now filled with ecstasy. He welcomed Yu Zhongquan and shouted, "Thank you, Immortal Master, for your kindness. You're welcome." You're welcome. Yu Zhongquan was in high spirits. The Qingfeng sword in his hand trembled slightly as he responded proudly. But suddenly, he seemed to have realized something. What? Immortal Master? Yu Zhongquan suddenly turned around and saw Xiaohua standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He stood there with a smile, and there was an indescribable wretchedness in his eyes. Yes, the ranger Yu Zhongquan actually understood wretchedness in the eyes of the so-called Namo Guanyin Bodhisattva. You really are Immortal Master? Yu Zhongquan's left hand trembled as he raised it. He pointed at Xiaohua and asked in shock. When Yu Zhongquan finished speaking, he felt that it was inappropriate. He hurriedly withdrew his hand and hid it behind his back. This Xiao is Immortal Master? Xiaohua said with a smile. Didn't I just tell you? This Xiao is the Moon Elder in the sky. Chapter 32-43. Young Master. Just as Xiaohua and Yu Zhongquan were talking, there was a rush of horse hooves in the distance. An old man with white hair and beard was also riding a big cyan horse. He rushed over without a care for his life. Although the old man's face was full of fear, the concern in his eyes was obvious. Seeing that the old man was about to catch up, Yu Zhongquan's face showed a trace of unnaturalness. He hurriedly shouted, "Seventh uncle." I'm fine. Hearing Yu Zhongquan's impatient answer, the old man's eyes showed a trace of comfort. Then he shouted behind him, "You too, hurry up and save the young master. If anything happens to the young master, this old man will peel your skin and pull out your tendons." Behind the old man, there were also two large green horses. Riding on the horses were two men dressed in tight clothes. These two men held the same green sword as Yu Zhongquan. Although these two men urged their horses with all their might, their horses were clearly not as spirited as the old man's horse. Although the two men said yes, they were still unable to surpass the old man. "You two don't want to live anymore?" Seventh uncle was furious. He was respectful to Yu Zhongquan, but he was not polite to these two family guards. Seventh uncle, the guard on the left, smiled bitterly. "You are chasing the young master without a care for your life. This little one is also worried about the young master, but you gave the most handsome Juefeng to the young master. This little one can't catch up." "That's right, seventh uncle," the guard on the right whispered. "Didn't you see that there is an immortal next to the young master? With that old man, wouldn't he be 100 times more useful than us?" "Fart fart," seventh uncle shouted. "Taoists are all deceiving things. Even if that person has some skills, how can he be more assured than are you family? If you two don't go and protect him, this old man will break your legs." The two family guards smiled bitterly and hurriedly urged their cyan horses. Unfortunately, no matter how hard they tried, the horses were not enough. In the end, they only arrived with seventh uncle. At this moment, Yu Zhongquan was no longer in high spirits like before. He was somewhat listless as he drooped his head and stood beside Xiaohua. Xiaohua had already landed, but he could clearly see that it wasn't because of him, but because of the old man who hadn't arrived yet. Sure enough, when the old man arrived before them, he didn't even bother to greet them. Instead, he immediately leaped to Yu Zhongquan's side and ran his hands all over Yu Zhongquan's body to make sure that he wasn't missing an arm or a leg. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief and said earnestly, "Little young master, you are the precious treasure of our Yu clan. A piece of meat in our old ancestor's heart. Once you go out." Seventh uncle. Yu Zhongquan's face turned red. He stole a glance at Xiaohua, who was still standing in the air, and complained, "There's a senior expert here. You should speak less." "Sigh, young master. It's not that this old servant wants to criticize you." Who would have thought that once Yu Zhongquan spoke, seventh uncle would become even more long-winded. "This old servant has eaten more salt than you have eaten rice. This old servant has walked more bridges than you have walked on roads. What kind of swindler has this old servant not seen? In the past, there were many Taoist priests who came to our Yu clan to eat and drink. Which one of them didn't bow to this old servant when they saw him? This old servant is very clear about their tricks. You sneaked out without telling your family. If this old servant hadn't discovered you early." Seventh uncle Yu Zhongquan's face turned completely green. His deception of claiming to be a ranger was inadvertently exposed by seventh uncle. Yu Zhongquan's face suddenly disappeared. He didn't even have the courage to look at Xiaohua. He quickly walked towards his cyan horse. "Little young master, hee. Little young master." The two family guards hurriedly stood in front of Yu Zhongquan and pleaded, "If you return home, we will serve you on your horse. If you don't return to see your wife, we won't dare scram." Hearing his wife, Yu Zhongquan's face turned completely black. He angrily said, "This Shuifeng is this young master's mount. You dare not let this young master get on his horse?" Seventh uncle, a fat family guard anxiously said, "If little young master gets on Shuifeng, we won't be able to catch up." Cough cough. Seventh uncle coughed twice. He glanced at Xiaohua beside him and lightly said, "This Taoist priest, this is my Yu clan's private matter. It seems you can't stay here and watch, right? Although you're not a Confucian cultivator and don't know about seeing and hearing indecent things, there's no need for you to stay here and watch the show, right?" "Ha ha ha, indeed." Xiaohua looked at Yu Zhongquan with interest. It seemed the difference between what he thought and Yu Zhongquan was too far. He laughed several times and flew away. "Humph, swindler." Seventh uncle glanced at Xiaohua and then turned to Yu Zhongquan and said, "Little young master, if you want to hide for a few days, we can just treat it as playing." Xiaohua, who had been reprimanded as a swindler, was flying in the air. Everywhere he looked, there were bandits fleeing in a sorry state. Behind these bandits, there were dozens of bodyguards shouting and chasing after them. They seemed to be extremely happy. Above these bandits, the god power centipede was riding a black cloud. From time to time it would swoop down. If it wasn't a flash of black light cutting the bandits into pieces, it would be like a black arrow piercing through the bandits' bodies. Wherever the black cloud went, it was truly invincible. No one dared to fight it. Xiaohua proudly looked at the god power centipede's devastation. He secretly said, "With this Zhao's identity, I naturally can't lower myself to the same level as these bandits." But this fake ranger who ran away from home said it well. "If the bandits commit evil deeds, I will kill them. If the bandits commit evil deeds, I will also kill them. Although these bandits can't take a single blow from this Zhao, how can I easily let them off with their evil deeds? This god power centipede, and little black and little yellow can help the Zhao. Anyway, there are a lot of evil spirits in this hidden immortal continent. Adding a few more of them won't make a difference." At this time, 3 of the 4 strongholds leaders had already been killed by the god power centipede. The last one was still fighting with Yuanya. However, looking at the panic on the fake monk's face and his scattered moves, It was likely that his mind had already collapsed. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated by Yuanya. The managers of the several companies, including Qi Jin, had already ordered the workers to tidy up the carriages and check the goods. They were ready to wait for the escorts to come back. As for Xiao Jian, his eyes followed the god power centipede as it flew up and down. He stared at it without blinking. It seemed that he was both confused and envious. Wu, with a sharp cry, the god power centipede seemed to have lost its target. It turned a few times in the air and rushed to the fat monk's head. The fat monk's face immediately turned pale. Taking advantage of this moment, Yuanya rushed close to the fat monk. He waved his magic wand and hit the fat monk's shoulder. Bang! With a muffled sound, the fat monk screamed miserably. Under this attack, the fat monk's shoulder bone was broken. He no longer had the strength to lift the weapon in his hand. The fat monk hurriedly shook the donkey and wanted to escape with the donkey. "Where are you going?" Yuanya roared. He jumped up and waved his magic wand at the fat monk's back. The fat monk was about to be killed by Yuanya. Pff, the sound of a fart as loud as spring thunder came from the donkey's tail. An incomparably foul smell mixed with black gas rushed towards Yuanya. Even the donkey's tail was like an iron rod that struck towards Yuanya's chest. Bang! Yuanya was scared out of his wits. He only had time to use his magic wand to block the donkey's tail. He himself fell to the ground with a fart that he had never heard before. His face turned black and green. Damn it, they are all weirdos. Xiaohua was unable to stand steadily in the air again. The incomparably powerful Yuanya was actually knocked out by the fart of the donkey. I wonder what he will think when he wakes up. Ouch, slow down. Since Yuanya was knocked out, the god's powered centipede naturally couldn't stand it. Without waiting for Xiaohua's orders, it immediately rushed down. The fat monk, who was already weak and numb, couldn't resist the god's powered centipede at all. Xiaohua still wanted to keep the strange little donkey, but it was already too late. Of course, Yuanya was poisoned by the strange little donkey and not simply fainted. However, in front of Xiaohua, this little bit of poison was nothing. A detoxification pill was enough to wake Yuanya up. However, contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, Yuanya's face wasn't more interesting than Yu Zhongquan's face. Instead, it was calm, as if being fainted by the fart of the donkey wasn't an extremely embarrassing thing. Ouch, this old man understands. Yuanya himself grew up in the forest. In his eyes, donkeys. Are there any differences between humans and donkeys? Xiaohua, who was watching the show, suddenly slapped his forehead and came to a realization. Since the 4 bandit generals were killed, the escorts who stayed behind to guard the carriages immediately sent out a signal. The escorts who were chasing after the bandits immediately gave up on their targets and returned. Their mission was to protect the carriages of the trading company, not to kill the bandits. Killing bandits was the job of the soldiers. The king of Jiasa country didn't pay them any money. However, all the escorts looked at the god's powered centipede with fear when they returned. In this battle, the one who deserved the most credit was naturally the god's powered centipede. The 4 bandit generals were beheaded, and more than 10 powerful bandits were killed by the god's powered centipede. If it weren't for the god's powered centipede, the escorts who represented justice wouldn't have been able to obtain victory. The escorts, who were the first to be dissatisfied with Xiaohua and then disdainful of Xiao Jian and the others, suddenly discovered their own shallowness. Their hearts filled with fear and anxiety, they each began to make their own plans. As soon as they returned to the side of the carriage, they began to discuss. Not long after, Qi Jin was pushed out by the crowd. He walked in front of Xiaohua with a smile on his face. At this moment, Xiaohua had just put the god's powered centipede into his space. He looked at Qi Jin with some confusion. Senior Immortal Qi Jin said cautiously. Although Senior Immortal disdained to make a move, Senior Immortal's spirit pet was very brave. It saved our trading company from the bandits. We just discussed that we are willing to pay half of the celestial stones we won from Senior Immortal's disciple. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.